Next man up, 1025, The Game. Jake Lyman, Nick Frazier with you on this Thursday edition of the program. Parker Kelly on the board, doing what he does behind the glass. Excited for a fun show today. Titans with waiver claims. We got those at the very end of yesterday's show. Me and Corey Curtis were, at the buzzer getting you all the names. Titans claimed 4 players with their top waiver priority and made 5 corresponding moves. Obviously, Shy Tuttle also signed. So the Titans adding 5 more players to their 53. We will talk about that plenty. Mike Borgonzi, Titans general manager, going to speak to the media at 10 a.m. We will carry that live and in its entirety when Mike Borgonzi does step to the podium. And also, college football is fully back. Now, we got 5 games on Saturday of last week, a little appetizer, little teaser. We got 17 games tonight, including top 25 Boise State at 4:30 in the afternoon today. So right when you get off work, you can sit down and you can watch a top 25 team play. It's beautiful. We got 5 straight days of college football, Nick.
I'm happy. I think you can finally say, give me a lazy boy, and I'm having a nice cold glass of Coca-Cola. I'm ready to go.
I got to say, they talk about seasonal depression, and it's like more of a winter thing. I get it a little bit during the summer with no football, and it just makes me happy to wake up on a day where you can sit down in the evening and watch football. There aren't many great games tonight. The only ones that I look at and say, I for sure want to sit down and watch: Boise State, USF, Nebraska, Cincinnati. That is in Arrowhead Stadium, by the way. And NC State, ECU, I think kind of would fall in that category.
Yeah.
I was joking Elon and Duke or Wyoming and Akron, but lots of games tonight. No shortage of college football. Everybody can get their fix. We got games tomorrow. Great slate Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Labor Day weekend.
Ready to go.
Full of college football.
That Stanford game, real quick, that Stanford-Hawaii game, that walk-off kick, to me, I was like, all right, that left me hungered for more,
right. Yeah, they gave us a great finish to week 0, and now today starts week 1, and we won't stop until Bill Belichick makes his debut on Monday night. We have some thoughts on Bill Belichick later on in the show as well. We are broadcasting live from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios, home of the $99 yearly Beehive membership, where the buzz is always about great service. Again, Mike Borgonzi going to talks at the podium. But let's talk about the moves that he made yesterday. The Titans made 4 roster claims with the top waiver priority yesterday. They brought in Jalen Armour-Davis and Samuel Womack, defensive backs from Baltimore and Indianapolis, respectively. Also brought in linebacker, I'm blanking on his name, from the Vikings.
Dorian
Mousey.
Yep.
Yes, they brought him in, undrafted free agent with the Vikings. And then CJ Ravenel from the Ravens as well. Defensive end, bigger defensive end, not quite an edge rusher, which people were expecting. I think he can kind of do both, but not quite the stand-up pass rusher the Titans may have needed. We'll see if another move is made there. Also brought in Shy Tuttle, a defensive tackle, add a little depth there with Tavondre Sweat's status and conditioning maybe in question heading into week 1. So the Titans claim those players. The 53 is now set, at least for now. And the moves that they made yesterday, Nick, showed me 2 things. And both of them have to do with the players that were on PUP to start training camp. One of them, Lloyd Cushenberry, seems to be ready to go. They cut Corey Levin. Now, I know Corey Levin, he didn't have to go through waivers, so they're going to re-sign him to the practice squad, and they can elevate him if they need to be their backup center, or if Cushenberry's not ready, start. But I also think that they wouldn't cut him if they didn't feel pretty good that Lloyd Cushenberry would be ready. So that's number 1. I think Lloyd Cushenberry likely going to be ready to go for Denver, which is big for the Titans.
Yeah, absolutely. When you go after a guy last offseason, two off seasons ago, you want to make sure you have your golden goose at center, because if you don't, and you start out with Corey Levin, not saying Corey Levin's bad, but you want to make sure you have a solidified offensive line that's going to protect Cam Ward, your prized possession at the quarterback position. So good for Lloyd Cushenberry. I heard him back, I think it was in Atlanta. Somebody was talking to him off the side, talking about his whole injury, saying it was a long process. It might have been TD. There was a long process for him mentally to get over that hump. So good for him to see that he's fully healthy, ready to go for week 1. And going up against Denver. old stomping
former
grounds.
team. Yeah. And the offensive line seems to be in a good spot. I will also mention on the offensive line that they must really, really like Brandon Crenshaw Dixon, because they made the decision to not put him through waivers. And I think it's smart, because if you knew Corey Levin was going to re-sign with your practice squad, if you had already kind of agreed to that, he doesn't have to go through waivers. You can cut him and protect Brandon Crenshaw Dixon. But based on what we had heard out of practice, I hadn't heard a ton about him being a standout, I guess, among the undrafted free agents. It kind of felt like he was maybe underwhelming a little bit compared to I guess, the status they brought him in with.
Yeah.
And they must really like him, because I didn't expect him to make the 53. I don't think a lot of people expected him to make the 53. Not only did he make the initial one, but they've held on to him too. So maybe that is a young depth piece that could end up being maybe your swing tackle by the end of the year or heading into next year.
Yeah, and they moved on from John Ajokwu. They waived him earlier yesterday. But looking at Brendan, his name, Brendan, it's like hyphenated, isn't it?
Crenshaw Dixon.
Thank you. Yeah. He has that giant stature of like 6'7", 300 plus. And if you're Bill Callahan, you look at his stature, this is an offensive tackle you can kind of really mold. And for him being young, that's something you really want to look at going forward. It's almost like kind of cleaning the financial books, getting young guys, developing them. That's essentially what Bill Callahan's trying to do. And I'm good on the Titans for keeping him throughout all of this. I mean, not having to waive him or anything. I think it's a great move.
I do like it, because you know what you have in Jalen Duncan and John Ajukwu at this point. Yeah. Like, you've seen those guys not only on your roster for a couple of years, but they've had to start because of how bad your tackles have been over the last couple of years. So I'm fine with waiving him. I believe Ajukwu is planning on coming back on the practice squad as long as he clears waivers, which we should find out in the next couple hours if he does. But Brandon Crenshaw Dixon, I think there's more potential there. And you don't really worry about your starting tackles. You got Dan Moore locked up for 4 seasons. You got J.C. Latham for at least 3 more, likely 4 if you exercise your 5th-year option. So you're good at your tackle positions for starters, at least you hope. But you do need more depth. We've been a little worried about swing tackle. Right now, Ali Udo is going to fill that role. I don't know if you feel all that confident if either Dan Moore or J.C. Latham get hurt. But if next year Brandon Crenshaw Dixon can step into camp as that third tackle and he continues to develop under Bill Callahan, that's a huge piece. And that's a draft pick that maybe you don't have to use in next year's draft to go get more tackle depth, because that is a position where you went into training camp feeling pretty thin.
Yeah. And looking at the grand scheme, you mentioned the draft next year, if the Titans continue grabbing guys from the waiver wire offensively, as in offensive tackles, maybe a few here and there at tight end, give or take, like you said, you keep building that mold and shaping these guys into being serviceable players, because we all know what this is. You're creating a window when you open up that new stadium. You want to make sure you have young players you can develop. And when you say they're, maybe not the best that can get the job done, you move on from them and the books are wiped clean. You have money to deal with. You can grab those marquee players, and next year's draft, you go after a lot of defensive players, and you could really build that mold of depth, quality players, and the depth you're missing at cornerback.
Right. They need more depth. They need more good players at corner, at edge, at linebacker. So I agree with you. I think that by keeping Brandon Crenshaw Dixon on, you hopefully solidify that tackle depth. You don't know. Like, he's still an undrafted free agent. He may not turn out to be a capable NFL player, but clearly they like what they've seen from him so far. And, not only retaining him for the first cut, but to keep him through waiver claims, I think that shows you what they feel about that undrafted rookie out of Florida. Justin from Greenbrier on our text line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, says, if I was Will Levis, I'd be kind of frustrated. They looked at the offensive line last season and called it good. This year they drafted Cam, and they've really concentrated on it so that he doesn't get hurt. Kind of tells me how much they thought of him. Yeah, I mean, I think it probably has more to do with last year they realized that they didn't invest enough. Like, I think they realized the mistake that they made with Will Levis last year of, they thought Nicholas Petit-Frere could play right tackle, and they were sorely mistaken. And this year, I think they tried to amend that. I don't know if that really has to do with Cam Ward. Like, obviously you want to protect your number 1 pick, but I think no matter who the quarterback was, they were going to try and invest more in the offensive line this year.
Yeah. I mean, I wasn't it Bill Callahan or Brian Callahan that was made the comment about Nicholas Petit-Frere. He's could make improvements last year when they first hired him.
Right. It
And
was like,
it was just more of like a tongue in cheek, like he's not really going to be here for the long haul.
I mean, I understand why they thought that. Like, if you're Bill Callahan, you have such a pedigree of being able to improve these offensive linemen, and you are viewed as one of the greatest offensive line coaches of all time. And Nicholas Petit-Frere, like, obviously he never turned out to be a good NFL player. He was horrible last year. But that is a former 5-star recruit who has all of the physical tools that you want. But, sometimes a guy can have the strength, the size, the feet, and it's just like it doesn't come together mentally. And you don't really know that until you see it. And for Bill Callahan, Brian Callahan, I'm sure the thought process was, well, this is a guy who has all the tools. All we have to do is get it out of him. And sometimes it doesn't work out.
Yeah. And also too with the Will Levis situation, I think it was already easier for the Titans to kind of just, like you said, didn't invest much in the line and just to call it scratch and just move on from Will.
Right.
I think it's a lot easier to do that.
Well, and Will Levis, he's a second-round pick. Like, there's a very big difference in trying to build around a quarterback who was your second-round pick and showed some promise. Last year, it kind of felt like the Titans said, you know what? We've got him. He showed some promise. Let's see what we've got. And I know that's not the way they talked about it. Like Amy Adams Strunk, when she fired Mike Vrabel, talked about the young, promising quarterback. But it made sense last year to, we don't have the top 5 pick to go get Caleb Williams or Jaden Daniels or Drake May. Let's see what we have in Will Levis. It didn't work out. Now you can take Cam Ward. And Cam Ward being the number 1 pick, they're going to give him every opportunity to be the guy and try and put the best possible situation around him. And we've seen that so far. Bring in Dan Moore, $80 million deal. You bring in Kevin Zeitler, a guy who is widely regarded as one of the better guards in the league, despite his increasing age. So, Cam Ward, when you're the number 1 pick, you're going to get treated like the number 1 pick. Will Levis, a second-round pick, was kind of treated like a second-round pick.
Yeah.
615-737-1025 is our phone number. If you have thoughts, we'd love to hear from you. You can text or call. Our phone line's driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Plenty more to get to on the Titans as they set their 53-man roster. Again, they made 4 waiver claims yesterday, 2 of them in the defensive secondary. I mentioned that my 2 main thoughts of yesterday's moves have to do with the 2 guys on PUP. We'll talk about L'Jarius Sneed coming up next. Again, Mike Borgonzi going to speak live at 10 a.m. We will bring that to you. Also, the Titans had their captain's dinner last night, announcing 7 captains. We will go through those later on in the show as well. Jake Lyman, Nick Frazier, Parker Kelly with you on this Thursday morning. Next Man Up, 102.5 The Game. Later today on ESPN 94.9 The Fan, the Nashville Sounds take on the Charlotte Knights at First Horizon Park with first pitch at 6:35. Coverage also available on the Game Nashville app and at thegamenashville.com. Sounds baseball on ESPN 94.9 The Fan is presented by Twin Peaks and Family Leisure. Jake Lyman, Dr. Crane, Nick Frazier, Parker Kelly with you on this Thursday. Next man up, 102.5 The Game. Titans made their waiver claims yesterday as they had the top waiver priority, bringing in 4 players, also adding Shy Tuttle in free agency. So 5 new players are taken in and 5 from the initial 53 are let go. We'll continue to give our thoughts on that. Quickly to our text line, driven by WilsonCountyHonda.com. Jeff says, guys, not knowing how to build a solid offensive and defensive line as the foundation of your team is unforgivable for a GM, coaching staff, and ownership. My point, you must get those right. 100%. And that's why the 3 guys that are responsible for how bad the offensive line has been are gone. Like John Robinson, he let Jack Conklin walk. He drafted Isaiah Wilson, and him and Vrabel brought in. No, he wasn't part of the Andre Dillard mess, was he?
No, J-Rob was not.
J-Rob was gone at that point. Vrabel wanted to bring in Dillard, and that was a mess. And then Rand Carthon just, kind of let right tackle sit there, didn't bring in a whole lot else outside of, he brought in Lloyd Cushenberry, which is great, but like outside of that, it wasn't great. So yes, the guys who are responsible for building the bad offensive line are gone. And it seems like the new guys have realized, yeah, you got to invest in the offensive line. So you've got $80 million man at left tackle, top 11 pick at left guard, highest paid center at the time in NFL history at center, Kevin Zeitler, former All-Pro at right guard, and 7th overall pick at right tackle. So if it doesn't work out, you can't say they didn't invest in it.
And I'd say in the last 2 years, that's a pretty good return.
Yeah.
Wouldn't you say?
They've done, I think, as much as you can to at least try and build this offensive lineup. We'll see if it actually results in improved play on the field. It should, but that's something that we will be talking about in about a week and a half once we see what happens up in Denver. Let's go to our phone lines driven by WilsonCountyHonda.com. Ed from Jersey is on the line wanting to talk about the Titans waiver claims. Ed, thanks for calling. Go ahead.
Hey, guys. Can you hear me? I'm getting a little bit bad connection.
Yep, we got you.
Okay. Hey, listen, so I was curious, when does this carousel for the waiver claims, do you think, slow down for the Titans? Because they picked up 4. I think there was 29 players, that were picked up by other teams. So that means there's another 25 players that are going to be out there that had originally made their 53-man rosters on their team. So you could make an argument that, although it's not a lot, but they could be better players even out there throughout the week as claims are being made. So I'm just wondering, when does this slow down?
Yeah, that's a good question, Ed. I think it's going to slow down gradually. Like, I would guess there were probably a couple of waiver claims today, and then maybe you get 1 or 2 throughout the rest of the week. But yesterday was the big day. I would guess the Titans probably aren't going to claim anybody today. There's a chance, but you would think that the changes that they made yesterday, that's what they wanted the 53 to look like.
Yeah, and you got to, it's almost like a storm. You got to let everything settle out, just let the whole field see how it all plays out. Because a lot of these guys you bring in, what's the point of bringing in more guys if you haven't seen them on the field yet? You know what I mean? Like, if you're just adding names to a list, you're not seeing anything on the field. So you're just adding more darts to the dartboard.
Like, there's going to be a couple of guys who get cut loose or who were cut loose yesterday who maybe surprise a team. And it's like, all right, well, we have to go put in a waiver claim for that guy. But we saw, I think Ed said 29 yesterday. I would guess today maybe it's like 5 tops. And then maybe the rest of the week you get 1 to 2. And that's probably it. So I really don't think we're going to see a ton. I think the Titans pretty much have what they want. But we'll see. Maybe Mike Borgonzi saw somebody get out there that he really wanted to go get. Ben says Brinker must have been hitting home runs for years, apparently. Yeah, it is strange that Chad Brinker doesn't get held accountable like everybody else. But,
it blows my mind.
Right. It's like, I'm not really sure why he isn't put in that same bucket as Rand Carthon, because they made all those decisions together. But,
his immunity to me is like, how?
But we've talked about this for a long time of it. It just seems like he is Amy's guy. And he's not going to be, I mean, eventually he gets to the front of the line, but it feels like he's just letting everybody else pass in front of him. And Brian Callahan is now the next one on the chopping block.
Some people are just good at just sticking around and somehow avoiding blame. And I would say Brinker's pretty good at that. So,
yeah, no,
some people, that's just their thing.
That is
that's
true.
Their niche.
I mean, it's just, find a way not to be the one who gets the finger pointed at him. And Brinker's been good at that so far. Brandon and Hermitage asks, are the waiver wire moves releases showing us the Titans are trying to improve, or are they just making moves to make moves? No, they're improving the depth. Like, I think you look at the cornerback room today, and this is where I wanted to go next, is the cornerback room was thin. And you look at it and you say, man, if L'Jarius Sneed isn't ready, which by claiming 2 cornerbacks, I think L'Jarius Sneed's not going to be ready for week 1, then you're left with Jarvis Brownlee Jr., Darrell Baker, and Roger McCreary, which is, I mean, it's not a horrible top 3. But if any of those guys go down, you've got a 6th-round rookie in Marcus Harris going out there, or Gabe Judy Lolly. I'm trying to think of, is there anybody else? That was the room, right? Like, that's the entire room. Now you brought in Samuel Womack, who played all 17 games for the Colts last year, had a couple interceptions, including one off of Mason Rudolph. So a guy who's at least proven that he can play at the NFL level. And then Jalen Armour-Davis seems like he was a highly coveted player. He was claimed not only by the Titans, also the Saints, the Dolphins, and the Super Bowl champion Philadelphia Eagles put in a claim for Jalen Armour-Davis. He hasn't been able to stay healthy, but this is a 6'1" cornerback out of Alabama who, at least from what I've seen from Ravens fans, looked like he was starting to turn a corner, but they had a deep cornerback room. He got waived. I'm not saying these guys are going to come in and be stars, but I do feel a lot better if L'Jarius Sneed does get hurt, when L'Jarius Sneed does get hurt, that you have guys who are at least experienced and have proven that they can play, rather than a 6th-round rookie or a 2nd-year undrafted free agent.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people, Titans fans out there, I don't know if they have the perception. It just seems like the normal perception of, oh, you got this guy with waivers, he's going to start immediately. Like, people think, oh, yeah, these guys. No, they're not. These are rotational guys, because like you're talking about Armour-Davis, Womack, they both have injury history that will hinder them from being starters, in my opinion. I think we saw Womack had some hamstring issues. Armour-Davis obviously has those knee issues going back to Alabama. Now you look at him, I think it was recently, I was reading an article on it, when he was in Ravens camp, Harbaugh said the MRI came back clean.
Yep.
But he had a little bit of, I think, call it a camp thing. So that, if you look at that as an injury, whoops, I wouldn't look too much into it, but there's something there.
The most he's ever played in a season is 8 games. So, like, I'm not expecting him, like, again, you have to temper your expectations with waiver claims. These are not guys who are going to come in and be Pro Bowl players. But as much as the Titans' problem is they don't have enough star players, enough really good players, they also don't have enough back-end depth that when injuries happen, because as Mike Vrabel always said, the injury rate is 100% in this league, and for his team, it was 100%. It seemed like everybody got hurt, that you need guys who are going to be able to fill in. Darrell Baker was a good example last year. He was a waiver claim who came in and really filled a role for this team. Now you have 2 other guys in Womack and Armour-Davis who, if you need it, they can be capable defensive backs for you, which you were lacking severely. So I like the moves that they made. I don't know a ton about Dorian Mossy that they brought in from the Vikings. He was at Auburn,
yeah,
and he was their leading tackler last year.
Yeah, he played, I think, 4 years at Duke prior to going to Auburn, and I think he had 2 multi-tackle games, one against Kentucky, the other one against Alabama or A&M.
Yeah.
One of those 2 games. So, I mean, he performed well in those games that Auburn needed him to play in. So, he's one of those guys I think you can kind of rely on as a rotational linebacker. We're talking about Cedric Gray earlier, and you mentioned Rand Carthon a little bit, that previous regime. You got to give, I think, Carthon's regime a little credit, because they're the ones that drafted Cedric Gray, and everybody kept calling him the green dot. I'm not there to say he's a green dot, but I'm there to say that he's a good rotational guy. So maybe you bring in a guy like that from the Vikings, and maybe that helps that rotation.
Well, yeah, you're right. You look at the 2023 draft for Rand Carthon, and we don't know exactly who was making those picks. Like with Vrabel, it was the era of collaboration. But obviously Rand Carthon it's not like he didn't have anything to do with it. And the only player left who's healthy on the team from that draft is Peter Skoronski. Like Tajay Spears will be back, but Will Levis is gone, and pretty much everybody else late in that draft is gone. Colton Dowell. And then the 2024 draft is starting to look a little bit better. Like Cedric Gray, James Williams, Jarvis Brownlee all look like they're going to be key defensive pieces for you this year. So it will be interesting to see how those guys all perform. And then the final waiver claim, CJ Ravenel from Baltimore, apparently had a good preseason, and you need help rushing the passer. So we will see what he's able to do. 615-737-1025 is our phone number. If you have thoughts, questions, anything, let us know. Our phone line's driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. This isn't just a concert, it's a cause. Trinetics Rock the Cradle helps give fragile newborns a stronger start and keeps mom close when it matters most. With Tim McGraw live on stage and your support behind every beat, Ascension St. Thomas is turning music into healing. Tickets are on sale now at rockthecradlenashville.org. Again, Mike Borgonzi going to speak to the media coming up at 10. We will carry that live and in its entirety whenever he is ready to go over at St. Thomas Sports Park. When we come back, I always think it's a fun exercise to look around and see which teams had the most players claimed, because that is a way to see which franchises have the most organizational depth, because not only do you have your 53, but you have 3 or 4 other players who are going to make someone else's 53. It's some of the usual suspects that you would expect, but there were some surprises that had a few players claimed too. We will talk about that coming up next. Jake Lyman, Nick Frazier, Parker Kelly, next man up, 102.5 The Game. This season, catch MTSU football on Totally Hits 93.3. This Saturday, the Blue Raiders will host Austin Peay. Kickoff is at 6 o'clock. Coverage also available on the Totally Hits Nashville app and at totallyhitsnashville.com. Jake Lyman, Nick Frazier, Parker Kelly with you. Next man up, 102.5 The Game. Titans made 4 waiver claims yesterday, using their top waiver priority to bring in 2 defensive backs, a linebacker, and a defensive lineman, adding to the defensive depth, which was sorely in need of some churning. So they brought in Jalen Armour-Davis, Dorian Mossy, CJ Ravenel, and Samuel Womack with their 4 waiver claims. Looking around the league, I always find it interesting to see who has the most players claimed, because it does, I guess it could show you 2 things. It either shows that you have great organizational depth because maybe you had 57 players who were worthy of making an NFL roster and you had 4 players claimed. Or it shows that you made the wrong decisions with your roster and somebody was surprised that you let somebody go. So it makes me wonder, looking around, it's a lot of the usual suspects that you would expect would have deep rosters. It used to be the 49ers, but this year you can see a lot of Baltimore Ravens got claimed. I believe they had 4. The Los Angeles Chargers had 4 claimed. The Chiefs had a couple players claimed, and I'm looking, I believe Denver had a couple other ones too. So those are all teams that you look at and you say, yeah, that makes sense. They're good teams. They might have some depth. Indianapolis had 3, 4 players claimed. Yeah, they had 3. Jacksonville had multiple players claimed, and New Orleans had multiple players claimed. So it makes you wonder, those teams not really known for being all that deep and the well-run organizations who develop good talent, maybe they just let some players go that they shouldn't have.
I'll say this about the Saints. The Saints are a dumpster fire right now. They need help. I mean, the fact that you have Spencer Rattler starting at quarterback for you and you go draft Tyler Shuh out of Louisville.
Yep.
Come on now.
Yeah, it was funny yesterday. Adam Vingan texted me because we were talking about Spencer Rattler, and Adam Vingan, a Saints fan, he sent 5 vomit emojis to Spencer Rattler being the starting quarterback. But honestly, how many vomit emojis does Tyler Shuck get? At least 3 in my mind. So
maybe 4.
Maybe 4. I don't think the Saints are going to be good at all. If there's a couple of games the Titans are going to be favored in this year, Saints at home would be the one that you look at and say for sure. So Titans get that 4th place schedule. They get the Saints, they get the Browns on the schedule, but obviously not going to be a ton of games they're favored in. Titans were able to churn out some of that organizational depth. I do want to go back to L'Jarius Sneed here quickly. At some point, you can't keep taking him for his word. And obviously, we don't know if he's going to play in week 1, but he said in this offseason, I'm as healthy as I've ever been. It's getting close. It took forever for him to get off the PUP list. And then he said he's confident he's going to be ready for week 1. The moves yesterday makes me think that he's not going to be ready for week 1. But maybe it's just an insurance policy of like, all right, even if he is ready for week 1, who knows how long we're going to get out of L'Jarius Sneed this year. We need more depth there. But bringing in 2 cornerbacks makes me think that L'Jarius Sneed, at the very least, not going to play a full game against Denver coming up in a week and a half.
Yeah, it almost looks like the Titans added some cornerback depth, 1, because they need it, but 2, because they're trying to work L'Jarius Sneed back into the fold. And if they're trying to get that L'Jarius Sneed of old with Kansas City, that top perennial cornerback, I think those days are behind him. I really do. I think the Titans need to start looking at other options to just, I wouldn't say phase him out, but work him into the lineup enough to where you can say, all right, if this doesn't work out, we can phase you out.
It doesn't hurt them to give him a chance because it's not like you can cut him. Too much dead cap, and you've invested enough in him. So I'm fine with giving him every opportunity, to go out there and try and be the guy again, because you really don't have any other alternatives, and it doesn't hurt you to give him a shot. But I think it would stun me if L'Jarius Sneed is on this team a year from now. It seems like it's widely regarded as a bad decision, and Mike Borgonzi was part of the group that traded him away in Kansas City. I have a feeling they have the out after this year where you're going to save some cap money. You don't have to give up a whole lot of dead cap. I think he'll be gone, and you just got to look back and say, yeah, we messed up. We gave up a 3rd-round pick for a guy who may only play 10 or so games for us over 2 years, and move on with your life. But at this point, it's a sunk cost. You might as well see if he can get back to any kind of starting caliber corner at this point.
Yeah, and I'm not trying to look too much into the future, but it's just the Titans trimming the fat on this roster. I mean, you got to look at it for what it is. I mean, L'Jarius Sneed, if he still has some stuff to prove going into this upcoming season. If he can get back to some form of, high accoladed Pro Bowl material, sure, that's fine. But I'm just already, I guess I'm being a pessimist just thinking this way, but I'm already looking past L'Jarius Sneed, ready to just go into next season.
I think most people are. And even like Teron Davenport, we've talked to him and he's like, yeah, you hope he can just be good enough to be on the field. But to think that he'll ever be back to who he was with the Chiefs, I think is a pipe dream at this point.
Yeah.
I think there's a hope that if you run him, Brownlee, and McCreary out to start the season or in week 2, that's a capable cornerback group. But to act like he's ever going to be the guy who bullied Tyreek Hill in Arrowhead when he was with the Dolphins, I think that's
it's behind him.
It's probably not going to happen at this point. 615-737-1025 is our phone number. You can text or call our phone lines driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. We're about 20 minutes away from Mike Borgonzi stepping to the podium, talking about the decisions he made, getting down to the 53 and the waiver claims he made yesterday. I am interested to hear his thoughts on Brandon Crenshaw-Dixon because we talked about it earlier. That was probably one of the bigger surprises that not only did he make the initial 53, that he stuck around and they protected him from waivers. Also, James Prochet, because that was the one that got a lot of people on Tuesday that, hey, he was supposed to be your punt returner. What's the plan there? Now, he is back on the practice squad, but I think Mike Borgonzi will hopefully shed some light on what the plan is there with Prochet, Crenshaw, Dixon, and then the moves that they made on the waiver wire. So we will get that coming up at 10 o'clock when Mike Borgonzi speaks to the media. We bring that to you live and in its entirety. We'll continue talking about the Titans roster building to wrap up the first hour after this. Also, we will talk Titans captains. They announced their 7 captains yesterday at the captains dinner. We'll get to that later in the show. And we have 17 games of college football tonight. We are so back. We will look at the full slate later on as well. Jake Lyman, Nick Frazier, Parker Kelly, next man up, 102.5 The Game. Next man up, 1025, The Game, Jake Lyman, Nick Frazier, Parker Kelly. Tune in for the Borchetta Bourbon Music City Grand Prix race on 1025 The Game this Sunday. Coverage begins at 1 o'clock and is brought to you by Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical. Titans have made their waiver claims. Believe we have, at least for the moment, a set 53-man roster, and the depth looks better on paper. I think that is one thing you can say is that I went through the roster with Parker and TD earlier this week and was saying, like, I've got 46 guys that I feel like deserve to make the roster. The other guys could just be placeholders. You brought in 5 more guys who they feel are upgrades on the roster, all on the defensive side of the ball. And it's going to be big, especially with, we mentioned L'Jarius Sneed, but also T'Vondre Sweat probably not going to be playing a whole lot of snaps against Denver if they're out there at all.
Yeah, I mean, he's still dealing with the tonsillitis,
right?
Along with getting back into shape.
Right, he's definitely not in football shape right now.
Yeah, I remember like when people would get their tonsils taken out, there's like the gauze and stuff.
Right,
you can't do a lot of physical activity because the blood will race to your mouth, whatever. So I get all that, but if you're T'Vondre Sweat, you're a professional athlete. You got to be getting some sort of treatment when it comes to your, I guess, diet. You got to have somebody really categorizing your diet to a T, where you're taking in so many calories here, doing certain things to where you can be back in the field at a quicker time.
It's tough because everyone kind of expected him to take that second-year leap, and he still may, but I just feel like he's not going to be fully ready to go probably until maybe even October. Like, I think he'll slowly ramp up. I think you're probably only going to see him out there for 20 to 30 snaps against Denver. That would be just a guess. And I think it'll slowly increase, but I don't think you're going to get full workload ready to go to T'Vondre Sweat maybe till the Texans game in week 4 or somewhere around there, just because, I mean, he missed almost all of training camp. He was out there for the first week and a half, and then the abdominal injury and the tonsillitis, I mean, it knocked him out for all of the joint practices, all of the preseason. It's going to be tough for a guy who's that big. I mean, I'm not worried about his overall conditioning. He proved last year that he can play plenty of snaps, but it's just, having to get back into that shape, and especially starting in Denver, I don't think we're going to see 100% of T'Vondre Sweat right off the bat.
Yeah, this situation reminds me a lot about Peter Skoronski when he had his appendicitis. And, he lost, 10 to 20 pounds coming back from that little small, I guess, procedure. And it's almost like he had to take 10 steps back or 5 steps back to go 10 steps forward. Kind of the same situation with T'Vondre Sweat. Got to take 5 steps back to go 10 steps forward. So hopefully, things work out for him. If I don't know what it's like to be 300 plus pounds and 6 foot, whatever, but it's probably very difficult to get back into football shape.
Right. And the Titans,
in a short amount of time, that is.
The Titans have, at the very least, it seems like, planned for it. They brought in Shy Tuttle, and then they kept Cam Horsley. I believe Timmy Horn is also Timmy Horn has to go through waivers. So we'll see if he gets back. Isaiah Rakes and Carlos Watkins all on the practice squad. So you've brought in some depth if you need it early on, but yeah, we'll see how ready to go T'Vondre Sweat is. I guess they are practicing today, so maybe we'll hear if he's back out there today. I would hope so. If he's not back out there today, then it may be less worried about how much he's going to play and if he's going to play at all in week 1. Texter on our text line, Jeff asks, what's the accuracy of waived Bears tight end Joel Wilson signing with the Titans? I am seeing on X, Brad Biggs of the Chicago Tribune says the Titans are signing into the practice squad. So him, and then there was an offensive lineman from the Broncos, Cole Webb, I think is his name. Those are the 2 guys that are going to be on the practice squad from other teams who I don't think have been officially announced yet. So we will see when that comes down. But yes, I do see that a credible Bears reporter is saying that Joel Wilson, the tight end, going to be added to the practice squad, which when you only have 3 tight ends on the roster, they only kept Chig, Gunnar Helm, and DMR. You probably do need one on the practice squad as an insurance policy.
Yeah, and I think they did a good job with only keeping 3. I think Josh Wiley was a little bit of an anchor point in a negative way. I think it was holding that tight end room back a little bit.
Yeah.
So, going forward with 3 and then grabbing a guy off waivers, allegedly, I think that's a good way to do it.
Yeah, I think that gives them a little bit more depth there. I mean, they kept 5 last year, so keeping 3, 1 on the practice squad, I think puts them in a good spot. Ricky on our text line says he was still putting in work, overreaction. I'm sure T'Vondre Sweat has been doing everything he can, but there's a difference between being in gym shape and being in football shape. He hasn't been on the football field in almost a month, right? Like, it's getting close to it. I'm I agree. I'm not worried about his long-term ability, but I do think it's going to take him a couple of weeks to get back to where he was hoping to be at the start of the season.
Yeah, because a lot of these guys in the offseason, they have a benchmark, a set of goals they want to achieve. When you have a procedure like this, it's going to set you back, Ricky. I'm just straight up with you. That type of stuff you're just going to have to deal with. And for T'Vondre Sweat, he's probably kind of kicking himself now because you wonder if this could have been done earlier in the offseason. I don't know.
Right. And maybe it was I don't want to use the word emergency, but like it came up quickly and there really wasn't a way around it. I'm sure that's what it was. I mean, you look back, it's different because Peter Skoronski lost weight because of the appendectomy, but it has a similar feel of like it could have just knocked him out of the rhythm and the growth that you were expecting from that guy heading into year 2. But we'll see. I'm excited to see T'Vondre Sweat back out there, and I'm hoping that we get good news from practice today, not only on Sweat, the other two that Brian Callahan said are tracking for week 1, JC Latham, Calvin Ridley. Those are huge guys to have out there if you want any chance to compete with Denver on the road. If you don't have your right tackle or your top wide receiver by a mile, you might be in some trouble.
The concern levels, they start to rise. And I mean, you never know. Going back to T'Vondre Sweat real fast, this could be a good thing for him. Maybe he does drop a few LBs. Maybe that does make him quicker off the defensive line. You never know.
Yeah, I guess that's true. With Peter Skoronski, you were worried about him losing weight. Maybe with T'Vondre Sweat, you'd like a couple of pounds down from him. So we'll see if they're out there on the practice field today. I'm sure we'll get some reports right around the end of our show. I think they're practicing from 10:30 to noon. So it might be Chase and Big Joe giving you that update, but we'll keep an eye on Twitter. All of our favorite reporters, Teron Davenport and the like. Mike Borgonzi is going to speak to reporters coming up in the next 10 minutes or so, and we will bring that to you live, get his full reaction on the 53, the decisions that he made, and the waiver claims that he brought in, bringing in 2 corners, Jalen Armour-Davis, Samuel Womack, Dorian Mousey from the Vikings, and CJ Ravenel from the Eagles on the defensive line. So a lot to get to with Mike Borgonzi. Again, coming up later in the show, we will react to the Titans announcing captains. Cam Ward, first rookie captain since Marcus Mariota. Do we think it is deservedly so, or maybe a little bit premature for the Titans' first overall pick? We'll get into that. And also college football. It is back. 5 full days of college football starting tonight. We got 17 games on the schedule. We will go through the slate later on in the show. But coming up next, Mike Borgonzi going to speak to the media after the Titans cut down their roster. We will bring that to you live. Jake Lyman, Nick Frazier, Parker Kelly, next man up, 102.5 The Game. Second hour, next man up, 102.5 The Game. Jake Lyman, Nick Frazier, Parker Kelly with you. We are awaiting Mike Borgonzi at the podium. Titans general manager going to speak to the media following roster cut down to 53. And the waiver claims yesterday that he brought in to add some depth on the defensive side of the ball. We are broadcasting live from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios, home of the $99 yearly Beehive membership, where the buzz is always about great service. So we'll hear from Mike Borgonzi in just a second. We bring that to you live and in its entirety. Also, coming up at 11, we're going to have two IndyCar drivers coming in. Graham Rahal and Devlin DeFrancesco going to join us as they prepare for the Borchetta Bourbon Music City Grand Prix coming up this weekend. So going to be fun. Have some drivers in here.
Be a lot of fun. I mean, you ever watched any F1 or IndyCar stuff?
It's the open wheel racing is crazy.
It's nuts.
It's crazy. And we had Joseph Newgarden in here last Monday, and I would love to see him get the hometown win. He was talking about it, how it's like he's gotten close. Last year he was so close to getting a win here in Nashville. It's the last week of the season, I believe. So he'd like to go out on top heading in next year.
Yeah, I mean, why would you not? Especially being your hometown. Oh, Hendersonville, Nashville,
close
down
enough.
the road.
Close enough. Yes, he's a stone's throw away.
Yeah, isn't it crazy how a lot of Nashville in general, we just claim a lot of people.
Right.
Isn't
It's
that nuts?
the Middle Tennessee area all kind of gets lumped in. It's like, oh, he's the hometown kid. It's like, all right, well, he's from 45 minutes outside, but whatever.
It works.
We'll call it. Mike Borgonzi is stepping to the podium as we speak. Let's send it over to St. Thomas Sports Park to hear from the Titans GM.
Training camp, competitive. It was a tough camp, especially traveling on the road for 10 days. I thought it was really good for the guys. Thought they responded well. I think the communication between the staff has been great. These last couple of days have been really tough here. It's always hard decisions to make here at the end with the roster. I appreciate all the work that the personnel staff put in, the coaching staff, the communication. There really was some tough decisions here at the end, but I think we're excited here to get this thing going here for week 1 in Denver.
All right. Go ahead, guys. Mike, you guys had prioritized availability pretty highly, and guys you brought along. Jalen Armour-Davis hadn't played a ton over his first 3 years. What maybe made him different was worth maybe taking?
Yeah, Jalen, we looked into, I've studied Jalen since back in Alabama. He has had some injuries. But we feel like we have a good plan here with the training staff and Matt that we're going to be able to get him up to speed. He's a talented corner. As we were going through, these preseason cuts, really, he was, one of the better corners out there that we saw. He's still young, he's talented. And there was, 4 other teams, I think, put a claim in for him, 4 including us. I think anytime you can add a young corner to the roster, that's why we put the claim in.
Like where Cam is from the time you first got your hands on him here to now getting ready to start week 1. How do you like his progress?
I'm very pleased with Cam. I mean, the whole staff is the way he's come in here and worked from day one. The time he's put in, early mornings, and just like any other rookie quarterback, they have to work through some stuff. But I thought just, seeing him going up against an R's defense during training camp, having the opportunity to go on the road for 10 days and, go against Todd's defense and Raheem's defense in Atlanta, seeing all those different pressure looks and handling that stuff. That's really the toughest thing for these rookie quarterbacks is really just handling protections and seeing all that. And I think he's done a great job with that. Anytime there are mistakes, he'll go back with Bo and Callie and Nick to work through it. But I think he's done an outstanding job with it.
That being said, how do you like the way Brian Callahan and Holtz and Hardigree have worked with him to get him to this point?
Yeah, the one thing they all work together with him. So whether he's meeting with Bo after practice, I know he meets with Brian, late after practice, after the day's over. So there's like this constant communication between all those coaches with them. The relationship with Cam, between Brian and Nick and Bo, it has been great. They've all coached quarterbacks before in the past. With Brian and Bo, and I think it's been great. It's constant communication between all of them, and they're all on the same page.
How big is that jump for him from limited snaps, pretty vanilla defenses, and a directive not to get hit into full games, everything goes defensively, and obviously going to get hit?
Yeah, I mean, the live bullets are flying now. I mean, you go through the preseason, but anytime it's like training camp, it picks up. The preseason picks up in speed, and in week 1 in Denver, it's going to pick up. So there'll be an adjustment to that. I think he got hit once, took 1 sack here in the preseason. But the speed of the game picks up here as we go on. So it's going to be adjustment for all these rookies, not just him.
What did you see out of Brendan Crenshaw Dixon that said he needed to be on the 53 ahead of some of the guys who had a little bit of experience?
Yeah, he's done a really good job since even we got him here in OTAs. He's made a lot of progress here. When you have those young tackles that you think have a potential to hit really high ceiling, and Brendan is one of those guys right now, and sometimes you want to hold on to those guys, especially when you get down to the cuts here. Teams are always looking for young tackles. They're hard to find. I've been pleased with his growth. He's got a ways to go, but working with Bill and the staff, he's got a lot of potential. So that's the reason why we held on to him right now.
You talked about being thin on the back end of the roster coming in. He's your lone undrafted rookie. How do you feel like you guys did with your undrafted rookie class? Given that?
Yeah, good. I mean, I thought the competition was good. We obviously kept Brendan on, and Restrepo's back here on the practice squad. Yeah, I mean, you're always these guys. Even though we let them go here now, they could be back here at some point. We made some waiver claims, some guys we added to the practice squad. So I think our staff always does a great job of evaluating these young guys. And, it's different every year for the guys that you keep. It depends, what your depth is on the roster. We found an opportunity here to claim a couple of young guys, couple of corners here at the cut down day with Warmack too. I think they came in here, they competed well. And like I told them too, when we released them, this might not be the last time we see you. We could bring you back here on the practice squad at some point this season. So it's always fluid.
How much were those moves to get Womack and Armour Davis a reflection of your expectation for L'Jarius at the start of the season? Just kind of what is your expectation for timeline for the program?
LJ, he's been doing great. We got him out here practice this week here. And, really we'll see how he looks next week. But, corners you can't have enough of. I know we have 7 right now in the active, and we went heavy in the O-line. Those positions are tough once you get into the season. So there's a lot of roster gymnastics you have to do here at the beginning to try to, keep some guys, and corners and offensive linemen, in my experience, have been the toughest, position group to really find during the season. So that's really the reason why we went heavy there.
Class of 2023 from just 2 years ago is really right now down to just Peter. Of course, Tajay's on IR, so is Levis. But it seems, is that just a product of calling out some parts that maybe don't fit as well as some of the guys you brought in, or why do you think that some of those guys just couldn't stick around?
This league is really tough and competitive year to year. So it just happened. Some of the guys that we brought in, we felt like we were going to keep them. And those guys will have other opportunities here with other teams, but it's really, it depends on, year to year, really, the guys you bring in, the guys you draft, the free agents that you bring in, and the roster looks different every year. So, those guys will be on teams. They're talented. So, it's just the way the National Football League is. It's a year to year thing.
How tough is it to add a couple of guys to the 53 that haven't played, an NFL snap yet, I guess, in Rapid?
Yeah, Mousy, we watched in the preseason. We got an opportunity to see him here that last preseason game. We watched him in college. He's a good special teams linebacker. So those young guys that get on the field right away and play teams, we felt like he's one of those guys that we identified here in the process. And, and then sometimes you're getting guys, like I said, it's a lot of roster gymnastics at this point, and sometimes it's manipulation. And we brought Ravenel in here as a young developmental guy that we wanted to get on the roster to take a look at. We've looked at him last 2 years and made a big jump in Baltimore this year. Now he's a big man, he played defensive end. He can slide into 3 technique. So anytime you can get those big guys in here and young and continue to develop them, that was our thinking on that.
O-line additions as a whole, have they kind of met expectations, whether it's the guys that you were able to add free agency or otherwise?
Yeah. No, we've been really happy, with Dan and Kevin and those guys. They've really had a nice camp. Kevin hasn't done the preseason games, but he's got enough experience there where he's going to be ready to roll here during the season. But having Dan at left tackle, I think he's done a really good job there, and then moving JC to the right. And then getting Cush back here at practice. We'll see, how it looks here next week too. So they're starting to gel though, so I feel good about that unit right now.
11 back on the practice squad, is that indicative that things are progressing well for Lloyd, and good to have 11 back either way?
Yeah, no, that was our expectation to get Corey back. Like I said, really the practice squad really has become like an extension of the active roster where you can move guys up with elevations and stuff. So, we had to do that with Corey right now, but Corey's going to be here.
Mike, assembling this team, how much of a priority in your mind playing the long game, so to speak, looking years down the road, maybe more than you would normally given the situation?
Yeah, I mean, you always want to try to hold on and acquire your best players, and especially with young guys here. So, when you hold on to some young guys here and you're hoping they develop here over the years, that's a part of it. Even if you have even if we've been established in Kansas City where we're holding on to younger guys, just because, there's growth there, there's potential. You don't want to lose those guys. So I think some of the things we did holding on to some of these younger guys, it depends on the roster, but, we want to keep our best players. So, that's really why we kept some of those guys on.
You guys haven't added anybody to the edge rushing department yet. Is that something that you are just satisfied with the group that you have? Or are you looking around maybe the waiver, maybe guys that are veterans waiting for money, getting closer to the season, seeing if those prices change, that kind of thing?
We're always looking for every position, but our edge group has done a good job. We added Ward in here and Draymond in the offseason, and then having Harold here, back here. You can play some special teams as well. So that process of evaluating position groups never ends. We went through and evaluated what could come free here in the preseason, and we felt good about the guys we had.
What do you see in the 2 new defensive linemen?
With Shy, he's had a lot of experience. He's played, had some really good years in New Orleans. Shy can play. He's got a little bit more versatility in there. He can play 3 technique. He can play nose. He has experience with Tracy, and with CJ. Like I said, he's a young developmental guy who's a big end that can play 3 technique as well, and hopefully he can help us out down the road here.
Guys still developing, but Chim, Alec, and Gunner, how you like what you've seen from those 3, a week away from the season?
Yeah, I mean, they've done some really good things here in camp. I think they're always prepared. That's the big thing, and that's the reason why they be able to get on the field right away, is because they're smart and they work hard. And they've done some really good things here in practice, and in the game as well. So we've been really pleased with those guys here.
Behind the thinking, Mike, about the decision on Crochet, whether or not to keep him on 53 and then get him on the practice squad. So.
Yeah, that was a tough one, because he really did have a nice camp for us. I'd like to keep all the guys, but you can only keep 53, and we kept 6 at receiver. But we're really glad he's back here on the practice squad. And like I said to James the other day, I said it's a long season, so. It just depended on the numbers that we could keep. And, we're glad to have him back here. And it's a long season, and, he could be up at some point, during the season. But I was really happy with him. You know, the practices, the games. He did a really good job, though.
What does that mean for the game starting out?
So Chim will be back there. You know, that's really one of the reasons why we drafted Chim, because of his return ability too. And he's done a nice job out here in practice. So Chim will be out there.
Mike, with the ones on offense, just throughout training camp and preseason, what did you see that gives you confidence you have what you need around Cam to help him be successful as a rookie?
Yeah, well, I think, you know, one thing, the protection's been good up front. You know, I feel good about the offensive line right now. I feel good about some of these young guys that we added here with Chim, Alec, and Gunner. And, you know, we added some guys like Van, and, of course, we got Ridley back here. So I think he has some weapons at his disposal. The biggest thing was protecting him, and I think, you know, we've done that with the offensive line. So it's going to be, you know, there's going to be bumps in the road as you go along the season here. But, you know, we feel good about the group that we have out there right now.
With your development of the quarterback, if you could think back to when you were in KC with Patrick Mahomes, Andy Reid, and those guys, was there a lot of integrating the things he did at Texas Tech to the offense there with the Chiefs?
Sure. Yeah, there's a lot of things. And I think Brian has touched on that. You know, he's taken some things that he feels comfortable with that he did in college, is incorporated that. The biggest thing is you want these guys to go out and play fast right away. And some of that stuff is, you know, getting the plays in there that they feel comfortable with. So that's certainly something that, you know, even before we drafted Cam, that Brian and his staff has been looking at. And we did that with Pat too, though.
How do you feel about the running back?
Yeah, I feel good with Tony. You know, we'll get Tajay back here at some point. I think Julius has had a really good camp. And Mullings is, you know, he's getting better, and he's going to be out there on teams right now. So I feel good about that room now, and we're able to get Mims back here on the practice squad, which I felt good about. You know, he's played in games before, so I feel good about that room right now.
Last one. All set?
All right. Thank you, Mike.
Thanks.
That was Titans general manager Mike Borgonzi at the podium, going through the Titans roster cut down and much more. We will react to what Borgonzi had to say coming up next. Jake Lyman, Nick Frazier, Parker Kelly, next man up, 102.5 The Game.
Behind the thinking, Mike, about the decision on Crochet, whether or not to keep him on 53 and then get him on the practice squad. So.
Yeah, that was a tough one because he really did have a nice camp for us. We like to keep all the guys, but you can only keep 53, and we kept 6 at receiver. But we're really glad he's back here on the practice squad. And like I said to James the other day, I said it's a long season, so it just depended on the numbers that we could keep. We're glad to have him back here. And it's a long season, and he could be up at some point during the season. But I was really happy with him. The practices, the games. He did a really good job, though.
What does that mean for starting out?
So Chim will be back there. That's really one of the reasons why we drafted Chim, because of his return ability too. And he's done a nice job out here in practice. So Chim will be out there.
That was Mike Borgonzi talking about what was probably the biggest surprise of cutdown day. James Prochet was not retained. He was cut. He has joined the practice squad, but Borgonzi saying Chim Dike, the rookie 4th-round pick out of Florida, will be the starting punt returner. Jake Lyman, Nick Frazier, Parker Kelly, next man up, 102.5 the game. So that was probably the biggest question from the Titans cutdowns was who's going to return punts? Do they feel good about Chim Dike, even though the special teams coach Bones Fossil said about a week and a half ago that they don't trust him back there yet? But it will be Chim Dike week 1 against the Broncos back there returning punts. I do like it because I think if that is a big reason why they drafted him, like Borgonzi said, to have him be able to be the returner, you want to get him those reps. But if things go bad early, you run the risk of him losing his confidence like we've seen with previous returners like Kyle Phillips and some of the other guys they put back there.
But yeah, you also have to remember too, Borgonzi, it wasn't specifically talked about with Shamir Dike about growth and development. That was more for offensive line purposes with Brennan Crenshaw-Dixon. You still have to look at that for Shamir Dike. So say if he does lose his confidence, say he does lose stuff like that, James Prochet is your safety net.
Yeah, and it's good to have him, and he said he could be up at some point this season. So you're right. You do keep a backup plan with Prochet on the practice squad, but Chim Dike going to get the start immediately at punt returner, which I think is important because we were talking about if Prochet was on the roster, Chim Dike probably has to be inactive if he's not the punt returner. Now that he's the punt returner, you can also get him some reps on offense, which will be important as he continues to develop. Again, people forget Chim Dike was picked before Alec Iamaner. The Titans picked Dike before they took Alec, even though Alec clearly has taken the reins a little bit more at wide receiver since he's joined the team. The other interesting thing, you mentioned the Brennan Crenshaw-Dixon. He talked about how he's a young tackle with a very high ceiling, and you don't let those guys go to the waivers. So, again, I didn't hear a ton from anybody who was out at practice that, Brennan Crenshaw-Dixon really is improving. I think it was kind of as expected for an undrafted tackle, but clearly they see something that they really like with the rookie out of Florida.
Yeah, I mean, exactly what Borgonzi said. It's tough to find young tackles in this league. And if you have a promising prospect in a guy like that, who's, like I said earlier, his stature is 6'7", 315, 316, that's somebody you can really mold into being a good young tackle in this league.
So Mike Borgonzi with high praise for some of his rookies, both rookies out of Florida, actually. Chim Dike and Brennan Crenshaw-Dixon both get a vote of confidence from the GM. Other highlights from the press conference, maybe this isn't a highlight. Mike Borgonzi said he feels good about the edge group. And I had seen some tweets from some reporters, and I think Mike Herndon, who writes for PaulKaharski.com, mentioned maybe there's a veteran edge guy sitting out there in free agency that you go get. I think Preston Smith's still out there, Zadarius Smith, both Smiths. Maybe you go out and get one of those guys. Didn't seem like Mike Borgonzi's in all that big of a hurry to go bring in a veteran edge player.
No, and I want to emphasize something he mentioned probably 2 or 3 times in that press conference. He talked about the 3 technique, especially for the defensive lineman. You're kind of you're lining up on the outside shoulder of that guard. To me, Denard Wilson likes to bring, I wouldn't say bring the house, but he likes to do a lot of different stunts, a lot of different things with that defense. So you can easily see your defensive line kind of clogging up the middle. And that, to me, would give more opportunities for those edge rushers that are not top quality to maybe do something out there.
Here's an idea. You mentioned CJ Ravenel could end up being your 3 technique. Does slim down Jeffrey Simmons get some reps on the edge?
I mean, it's not a bad option. I know it's.
I mean, you're right.
He
Denard
will
Wilson.
play. He'll play out there. He'll probably play like 5'7" technique. He'll be out there.
No, but I mean, do you have him stand up? Like,
I don't see that. His handle's still being. I mean, he's still 300 pounds. So,
no, I know. I'm mostly kidding. Somebody texted that in yesterday about could we see Simmons bump outside? Like, yes, I agree. He'll be in the like 5'7" technique. I don't think you'll have him, playing the Arden Key position.
But yeah, I mean, I know it's kind of joking matter, but it kind of would put a wrench into things if you're an opposing offensive line, because you have to then kind of rearrange everything to go on Jeffrey Simmons. Say you have to have a pulling guard on that side, have to double team or something like that, and you still got Sweat in the middle with Shy Tuttle. You never know.
Yeah, you mentioned it. Denard Wilson likes to throw different things at the offenses. Maybe that's a wrinkle that we see throughout the year. I wouldn't count on Jeffrey Simmons being standing up on the outside, but who knows?
What a spectacle, though.
If you give yourself flexibility on the defensive line, who knows how you can use those players. 615-737-1025 is our phone number. Our phone line is driven by WilsonCountyHonda.com. Janice G. from Brentwood asks, how many times did Mike B say, I counted over 200 times. I saw that text in the break, and I listened during that clip we played about Jim Deacon. I was like, man, he did say it a lot.
Yeah.
And there you go. You got me saying it too. You got me going with the ums and the filler words. 615-737-1025. You can text or call. When we come back, the Titans announced their captains last night. I'm surprised no one asked Borgonzi about that. Maybe that's more of a Callahan question. And I think Brian Callahan will speak after practice today, coming up at noon. So we'll see if he gets a question about the captains. We will talk about them next, 7 of them, including Cam Ward. Jake Lyman, Nick Frazier, Parker Kelly, next man up here on 102.5 The Game.
of the quarterback. If you could think back to when you were in KC with Patrick Mahomes, Andy Reid, and those guys, was there a lot of integrating the things he did at Texas Tech to the offense there with the Chiefs?
Sure. Yeah, there's a lot of things, and I think Brian has touched on that. You know, he's taken some things that he feels comfortable with that he did in college, is incorporated that. The biggest thing is you want these guys to go out and play fast right away, and some of that stuff is getting the plays in there that they feel comfortable with. So that's certainly something that even before we drafted Cam, that Brian and his staff has been looking at, and we did that with Pat too, though.
That was Titans general manager Mike Borgonzi talking about the way they've developed Cam Ward through training camp and maybe some similarities to how he worked through things with Andy Reid as they developed Patrick Mahomes in Kansas City. Jake Lyman, Nick Frazier, Parker Kelly, next man up, 1025 The Game. A reminder, coming up at 11, we will be joined by IndyCar drivers Graham Rahal and Devlin DeFrancesco, going to talk the Borchetta Bourbon Music City Grand Prix, which is coming up this weekend out at Nashville Super Speedway. So excited to talk with them at the top of the hour. But we hear from Mike Borgonzi there, and he talks about Cam Ward and his development. The Titans announced their captains yesterday, and it included Cam Ward, the number 1 overall pick. He's the first rookie captain since Marcus Mariota, the 2nd overall pick. And he's joined, we'll list them all off here for you. On the offensive side, it's Ward, Calvin Ridley, and Tony Pollard. On the defensive side of the ball, Jeffrey Simmons, Cody Barton, Amani Hooker, and Morgan Cox is the special teams captain. Really, those are the guys that I kind of expected. I think maybe not. Ridley would be the one that I would have been iffy on. I think you could have gone offensive line with maybe a Lloyd Cushenberry, Peter Skoronski, maybe. J.C. Latham, I think, eventually ends up being one of your captains, but maybe it's a little early for him. But the people who say Cam Ward shouldn't be a captain as a rookie, like, have you watched what's been going on in practice in the preseason? Like, this guy is clearly a leader of this team. And I know the old adage is like the players will vote, but the coach counts the votes. So who knows if this is actually who they voted for, but it does seem like naturally Cam Ward has become one of the leaders of this team, and it wouldn't make sense to not make him a captain just because he's a rookie.
Yeah, and it shows the direction the Titans are really going in, and that's youth. And you have to really kind of it's like almost like a baptism by fire type thing, but you make a great point. The fact that he's been a leader throughout this preseason and training camp. And I feel it's been a little bit different from the Will Levis, Marcus Mariota-esque of captaincy is the best way to put it, because you mentioned earlier in the show that he's the last rookie quarterback since Marcus Mariota to be a captain. And so looking at that, Mariota and Levis to me were more of those quiet captains to where like they would kind of lead by example on the field.
Yeah.
And Ward's a little different.
Levis, I think, would try and speak up more than Marcus would, but I think it came off a little fake.
Yeah. Not genuine. Yeah.
Yes. I think Will Levis, it came across as like manufactured leadership of like, I'm the quarterback. I should be the leader. I'm going to try and be the leader. With Marcus, it was like, yeah, I mean, I'm going to go out and do my thing, but I'm not going to be your rah-rah guy. With Ward, I think it's just genuine. Like, it seems like he just genuinely is. I actually heard J.C. Latham was on the Greenlight podcast with Chris Long. And the last question they asked J.C. Latham was, what is one word to describe Cam Ward? And he said influential. And like, that's an interesting word to use, but I think it shows you why Cam Ward is a captain as a rookie, because it seems like there's a magnetic feel to his personality that like just draws people in.
Yeah. And I listened to something as well. It wasn't the Greenlight podcast, but it was an interview with CBS. It was Cam Ward and Charles Davis. And Charles Davis had Cam Ward basically give a one-word answer for every place he's been at. And I think Incarnate Word, he said he would describe himself as gunslinger. And then I think at Miami, it was like along the lines of like development and really understanding the process of being a quarterback. And that just shows his true, not confidence, but development as a quarterback going into being an NFL star,
right,
in some regard.
And the story from Miami, and I'm forgetting where I found this. It was right around when he was getting drafted. A story was written about Cam Ward had just gotten to Miami. It was like a week into the offseason, and he got a bunch of receivers together to work out down in Miami. And one of them didn't show up. I want to say maybe it was Jacoby George. One of his Miami receivers didn't show up to the practice. And Cam Ward calls him up and goes, "Where are you? You need to get over here. Like, we've got the whole team, like all the receivers together. We're throwing." And he was like, "I'm working out with Lamar Jackson right now. Like, I'm out here with an NFL quarterback." And Cam Ward goes, "Is Lamar Jackson going to be throwing you this fall?" "No. So get over here." And he made him drive an hour across town to come and work out.
Wow.
So it's like, it does seem like there is just a natural leadership quality. And does that mean he's going to be successful? Maybe not. But, I think it is good to see that his teammates seem to be attracted to him, and they voted him a captain. So I'm excited to see it. I think it's a good sign for Cam Ward as he looks to really take this team by the reins this season.
And you also have to add this as well. With him being a no-star recruit, you have that chip on your shoulder. And for Cam Ward, I feel like that chip on his shoulder kind of gave him that extra edge of being a leader, having to really showcase who he truly is. And I think that's what puts you over the top to being that captain.
Right. So Cam Ward announced as a captain, along with Calvin Ridley, Tony Pollard, Jeffrey Simmons, Amani Hooker, Cody Barton, and Morgan Cox. I think Cody Barton, you could kind of say the same thing about on the defensive side of the ball. He's come in as a free agent and really taken that leadership role by the reins too. I mean, he's your green dot linebacker, which I know a lot was made of last year of who's going to be the green dot. Cody Barton has come in and maybe a more of a relative unknown at linebacker. I don't know if people really thought he was going to come in and be a difference maker. And it seems like he really has stepped up since he's arrived here in Nashville.
Yeah, I mean, he's found his place for sure on that defensive side of the ball. And nonetheless, whoever's paired with them, if it's going to be Cedric Gray or whoever else, like that, the way he's able to adapt to that is impressive. It shows that he's a true pros pro. And that's another reason why you got to, I'd say, nominate him for a captain on this team.
And Morgan Cox, captain again too. 3 straight years for Morgan Cox, and
special teams warrior.
Right, it makes sense. I mean, you're going to pick a special teamer. He is the longest tenured of the 3 of them. Like Johnny Hecker, obviously been in the league for a long time, but he just got here. So Morgan Cox is your captain. I think that's about the 7 I would have picked. If you told me there were 7, I think the only one I would have wavered on would be Ridley. And maybe would have gone with an offensive lineman. Just because that's typically how it goes. You get an offensive lineman, the quarterback, and a skill player on defense or on offense, and then defense, it's one at each level, and then a special teamer.
Yeah, and I'm very surprised that Amani Hooker's not been a captain more than once.
Yeah,
I mean,
me too.
That guy has been a true leader for this Titans franchise in general, and the fact that you don't have much secondary depth the last couple of years, and he's now a captain.
I guess you had KB for the first 3 or 4 years of his career. So
yeah, but right after that, he should have been
right. So last year, I'm surprised that he wasn't a captain too. I'm forgetting who the captains were last year. Was Kenneth Murray a captain last year?
Ooh,
I don't think.
I don't think he was. I'm trying to think of who the defensive captains were last year. Obviously Jeffrey Simmons, but I'm blanking on who else was a captain last year for this team. Because if it wasn't Hooker on defense, maybe there were less captains.
It was Kenneth Murray.
It was okay. Yeah, Kenneth Murray was a captain.
Jeffrey Simmons, Kenneth Murray, and it says Amani Hooker from last year.
Oh,
they only had 5 or 6 last year. They didn't have 7.
Yeah, because Levis was a captain too.
Yeah, I don't know why it says that then. I don't know. Interesting.
Yeah, because looking at they put the stars on the graphic, and Hooker only has 1 star there.
So maybe that was just kind of
that's strange.
But Kenneth Murray was captain.
Kenneth Murray, captain last year. So who knows? Maybe Cody Barton ends up being like Kenneth Murray. But I think from what we've seen, Cody Barton looks like he's going to be a key piece to this defense. Sean on our text line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, says, pronounce Mariota's name right, por favor. Isn't
Mariota?
Marcus Mariota.
Does he want us to say Marioto like Roger Goodell did on draft night?
Mariota, I believe, is like the actual Hawaiian pronunciation.
Mariota.
But like I don't know if anybody actually uses that. But Mariota. It's not Mariota. It's Mariota. We learned that back in the day. 615-737-1025 is our phone number. The Titans have announced their captains. Cam Ward, the number 1 overall pick, first rookie captain since Marcus Mariota back in 2015. You can text or call our phone lines driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Tune into ESPN 94.9 The Fan this Sunday at 2 p.m. for our college football game of the week. Virginia Tech versus South Carolina, presented by Twin Peaks Restaurants, Circa Sportsbook, and Macero in 12 South. Coverage also available on the Game Nashville app and theGameNashville.com. Take your tailgate to Twin Peaks, home of 29-degree drafts and wall-to-wall sports. We'll continue the conversation around the Titans coming up next. And again, we'll have IndyCar drivers Graham Rahal and Devlin DeFrancesco joining us at the top of the hour. Jake Lyman, Nick Frazier, Parker Kelly, next man up, 102.5 The Game. Vanderbilt football begins the season this Saturday at home against Charleston Southern. Catch all the action on 102.5 The Game. The pregame show starts at 4:30. Kickoff is at 6. Coverage also available on the Game Nashville app and at thegamenashville.com. Jake Lyman, Nick Frazier, Parker Kelly with you on this Thursday. Just heard from Mike Borgonzi earlier this hour talking about the Titans' decisions getting down to 53, the waiver claims, and I had one more thing I wanted to get to about the cornerback room. So they asked him about Jalen Armour Davis. The first question, actually, of the press conference was about Armour Davis and his injuries. He has only played up to 8 games in an NFL season in his first 3 years in the league. And he basically kind of brushed it off, said, we've looked into it. We think he's fine. We don't think it's a chronic issue. And he did point out that 3 other teams, including the Eagles, did put a claim in for Jalen Armour Davis. So I kind of feel better about it after hearing that. And he also mentioned that the claims don't have to do with Snead. I'm a little skeptical on that. He said L'Jarius Snead is doing great, and we'll see how he looks next week. And I think the point he made was that cornerback is one of the harder positions to find depth at during the season, which may be true, but I don't think they make 2 claims at corner, especially outside corner, if they felt 100% about L'Jarius Snead and where he is.
Yeah, you're definitely trying out one of those guys to kind of rotate with Snead, like I was talking about earlier, kind of rotating Snead back into the rotation here just to kind of get his feet wet. I don't know if it's one or the other, or if it's going to be both of those guys, and they just say, all right, Snead, just keep working on the side, keep getting back to full health. Yeah, I'm with you on this. I'm still a little hesitant on the whole Snead injury thing.
Yeah, I mean, we'll probably never really know what exactly has happened with L'Jarius Snead since he's been here. I mean, the quad and the legal issues and the knee. It's like somebody needs to write a book about this when it all wraps up.
Yeah, I just look at when Borgonzi mentions nicknames of players, like he kept calling him
LJ.
LJ. I'm just like, are you trying to play this down? Because that's kind of where the vibe I got.
I mean, I guess he was around him for so long in Kansas City that, they probably have a rapport, and I guess that would make sense.
Yeah, but you can use that rapport as kind of like a ghosting shield from the media to you. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, that's a good point. And I also did notice the Titans just announced some of their practice squad transactions. John Ojukwu not added to the practice squad. So a little bit strange that and maybe somebody claimed him. I guess that could be what happened. And I haven't seen any of the waiver wire stuff come down yet, which should come out soon. We're about 24 hours removed from the last one. So we'll see. Maybe he did get claimed, but yeah, John Ojukwu not listed on there, which you would think the fact that they kept him on the 53 initially meant that they wanted to bring him back in some capacity, but who knows? I guess we'll find out in the next couple of days.
Yeah. Maybe somebody else kind of came through the cracks and said, you know what, I'm going to kind of beat you out on this job. So maybe. I don't know.
He did praise Brandon Crenshaw-Dixon, which is it was surprising because, again, it's not like this is a guy that we saw in preseason and he looked dominant against third stringers. Like I don't remember anybody saying anything really like overwhelmingly positive about Brandon Crenshaw-Dixon. But again, we're not in the building. We don't know what he's done, but Borgonzi said that he's made a lot of progress, and young tackles with high ceilings, they don't get out there very often. So we will see if Crenshaw-Dixon ends up turning into anything. Again, Mike Borgonzi spoke to the media. Nick, do you feel okay about where the Titans are roster-wise? I mean, I don't think this team is going to win a whole lot of games, but I do have to say I think I feel better depth-wise than I did a week ago with the moves that they've made.
Yeah, I'd say on paper, this team has gotten better. I think you can say that about any NFL team for the most part, but for the Titans specifically, because we've been kind of harping on the depth of this secondary and not really having that, getting 2 guys off waivers that way. I think you feel very comfortable with that. As for, I don't know, offensive line, Borgonzi mentioned that there's still a lot of growth in that, area. That's pretty good. Overall, yeah, I'm pretty excited about this team. The only hesitation I have is the running back room. He talked about how he felt good about the running back room. I'm indifferent about that. We were talking in the break. I don't know how much you can really put on the shoulders of Tony Pollard. Like, I get it. He's a good running back, 1,000-yard guy. I get it. But at the same time, you don't have I don't want to call it smash and dash because that's Chris Johnson, Lindell White.
Yeah.
You don't have your your Batman to your Robin. Your Tajay Spears,
Right.
he's out for the first 4 weeks.
No, you look back at when the Titans have been successful, they've had multiple running backs. You mentioned smash and dash with Lendale White, Chris Johnson, DeMarco Murray, and Derrick Henry early on in Derrick Henry's career. Then it was Derrick Henry and Dion Lewis. So you always had a Robin to the Batman. And right now, without Tajay Spears, are you going to give Julius Chestnut more than a handful of snaps on offense per game?
I mean, you kind of have to in a roundabout way.
Right. Like you can't just wear Tony Pollard out for the first 4 weeks while Tajay's on IR.
But going back to the whole tight end thing we are talking about earlier, to me, when you keep 3 tight ends and you have more wide receivers, obviously you're going to throw the ball more. But I think that'd be Callahan, and also that clip you played about Patrick Mahomes and how they had different things they brought back from Texas Tech. I think Callahan's starting to experiment with that, with the lack of depth in certain areas on offense. Cam Ward, what you got from Miami? Let's experiment some things with that.
That's a good point,
because
that's
maybe
where they want to throw the ball more.
Yeah, I think that's kind of the Titans have always been run first mentality. You have Cam Ward who's kind of shifting that tide a little bit, so maybe they throw the ball a little more than they run it.
Yeah, running back was one of those positions yesterday. Talking with Corey Curtis of like, are they gonna make a waiver claim? But Tajay is going to be back after a month, or at least you hope he's going to be back after a month. Does it make sense to waste a roster spot on another running back? And they decided that what they have is enough. We'll see. I'd be very worried if Tony Pollard got hurt early on in the season, because Julius Chestnut, as good of a running back 3 as you think he is, he can't be your running back 1.
No, he's not a Dante Foreman that the Titans had a few years back when Derrick Henry was injured. You can't have that combo. Looking at this, running back room as a whole, I think you should look at possibly getting a running back off the waivers and or just in free agency. Nonetheless, because that running back room is expendable. Like I look at Tajay Spears as an expendable asset. I know he's still, a young guy, but running backs in this league are expendable. They're looked at as a dual threat option out of the backfield, a pass catcher / run game guy in general. Derrick Henry's an anomaly. He just runs the ball. I get that. But now the modern day football is coming to, we need pass catchers out of the backfield.
Well, you look at like the Commanders. Brian Robinson he's a solid running back, good player. They drafted Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt in the 7th round, and he pushed Brian Robinson out in 3 weeks of training camp. So yeah. I agree with you. It's like Titans now have spent 2 third-round picks on running backs in the last 5 years with Darrington Evans and Tajay Spears. And it's like, did you really get anything out of it? Like, you've now spent 4 day 2 picks on quarterbacks and running backs over the last 5 years. And you kind of just lit those picks on fire. Like, Tajay's been fine.
Yeah.
But
minus injuries.
But like Levis, Willis, and Levis cost you 2 day 2 picks because you had to trade one to get him.
Mm-hmm.
Willis, Darrington Evans. Could you have used an extra cornerback with one of those picks or an extra edge rusher?
Yeah.
For sure. And that's why the depth has been so bad, is because they use these day 2 picks on positions where, for quarterback, if you don't take a quarterback in day 1, it's probably not going to work out. And for running backs, you can really take them anywhere and you can find somebody. You don't have to spend premium draft capital to go get a running back. So we'll see. Maybe Tajay Spears comes back with a vengeance and he figures it out. But it wouldn't shock me if the Titans have to pretty much reset that running back room after this year.
I'm okay with it. I know that sounds kind of negative. I'm okay with them resetting the running back room. Like I said, expendable options. I mean, you go grab Jordan Mason from the Vikings if he ever becomes available.
Right.
Gallatin guy.
Bring him home.
Yeah. I mean, you could go grab anybody. Seriously. Running backs anywhere.
615-737-1025 is our phone number. If you want to text or call, our phone lines are driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. We'll take a break. When we come back, we'll start off hour number 3 talking to 2 IndyCar drivers who are in town for the Borchetta Bourbon Music City Grand Prix coming up this weekend. Graham Rahal and Devlin DeFrancesco are going to join us right after this. Jake Lyman, Nick Frazier, Parker Kelly, next man up, 102.5 The Game. Final hour on this Thursday. Next man up, 1025 The Game. Jake Lyman, Nick Frazier, Parker Kelly with you, broadcasting from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios, home of the $99 yearly Beehive membership, where the buzz is always about great service. And we are now thrilled to be joined in studio by Rahal Letterman, Lanigan drivers Graham Rahal and Devlin DeFrancesco, getting ready for the Borchetta Bourbon Music City Grand Prix this weekend. Guys, thanks for coming in.
Thank you.
Appreciate you guys taking some time with us. Excited for the race this weekend. I know it's the final race of your season. What's the season been like for you guys? I know your teammates as you guys come down the stretch here.
Yeah, man, it's been we started off the year, I'd say a little rough. On our side as a team, we've had last couple of years that we've been really trying to find our footing, but we've done that. Frankly, mid-season, we were fast pretty much everywhere. I mean, started, front row, second row, third row. I mean, up front a lot. In the last couple of races, we've started to hit our stride, honestly. So last week, qualified 10th in Milwaukee, which is a short oval, much like Nashville. But as a team, that's been our Achilles heel. I mean, for years, is the short ovals. And so, to be right on pace in qualifying was pretty cool. And our hope is this is our last race for the IndyCar season, for NTT IndyCars for 2025. And so it's a big weekend, man. And I've known Scott Borchetta for years and years and years. I love Scott. He's just an awesome guy. What he's done when he brought us back here, obviously on the city streets, when you get that new stadium done so we can come back down, please. But then obviously having to move out to the Oval, it still put on a hell of a show last year. And I think we'll do the same this weekend.
You mentioned the city streets. Is that preferable for you guys being out there, getting to drive down Broadway? I know that was cool for the fans being able to be out there and see you guys rolling down the downtown streets.
The street course was amazing here. It had its own character. It was a very characteristic type track. Very different to an oval. Obviously, I love both, but definitely wouldn't be upset going back downtown. That's for sure.
What can IndyCar fans expect coming into this weekend with you guys?
I think it's going to be a great show. I think the crowd turnout's going to be amazing. I think the race is going to be amazing. In general, I think the short ovals this year have been a good show for people, and I think it's going to be an exciting weekend.
Yeah, I think there's still quite a lot at stake. I mean, I know the championship's decided. Folks that follow IndyCar, week in, week out, know that. But the reality is, there's still a lot at stake. There's a lot of battles to be had. There's a lot of pride. Last race of the year, kind of last shot to get a win on the year. As we kind of head into the long off season. And so, people that have watched the short ovals this year, the short oval racing has been amazing. I mean, it's been awesome. Last weekend was ridiculous. Like the amount of passing, 600, 700 passes. It's more than F1 will get in about 10 years worth of racing, to be honest. So, it's good stuff right now. I think Nashville will be much the same in that capacity. The other thing is, IndyCar racing and racing in general is super family friendly. I harp on that a lot. I got two little girls. They love going to the racetrack. I think people expect it's going to be super loud and, it's not great for my kids. It's not the truth. It's just not the truth. And, tickets for kids as cheap as $10 with a ticketed adult. And I think, that's about as good of entertainment as you're ever going to get. Go out, walk around the track. The media, the sponsor Midway is going to be great. A lot of things to do. Got concerts going, All American Rejects playing on Sunday. It's just a ton happening. I think people often don't expect that when you go to the racetrack, but it's a great time with the family. I'd strongly, if you've never been, definitely got to come out and check it out.
You mentioned the last couple of, races. You guys have been tinkering some things, kind of finally catching your stride. What are some of those things you guys have really honed in on that have really given you some more success?
Yeah, I mean, I did Dev or we can answer, but it's there's a lot. There's a lot. I think chassis setup, there's a million different combinations we can run of springs and, suspension geometry, stuff that people listening aren't going to probably have a clue what that even means. But the reality is, in a sport that's as competitive as IndyCar is now, and at the speeds in which we go, like minor things make massive differences. And so to try to find, that sort of combination that works is so tough. And trust me, Dev can speak to this, but like both of us have been on the simulator doing a lot of work. It's not like the simulators you see at home, a little more advanced, but doing a lot of work in particular, for this weekend. So there's still a lot to be found.
I think we've generally, as Graham said, we're definitely making big strides on the short ovals. last week, generally at the end of stints, we could fight with anyone. And this team, we have what it takes to fight. With your Alex Palouse and Scott Dixon. It's the smallest things, that we just need to keep working on and getting better because as Graham said, the field is so tight. It's really separated by the smallest of margins.
Nashville loves their racing, whether it's
Yeah.
NASCAR, IndyCar, F1. You always see the city rally around these events. How does this city compare to some of the other places you go and the fan interaction, the atmosphere when you guys are out there?
Well, Nashville's the hot spot of America, right?
It
I mean,
is.
right now, at least, it's everybody wants to be here. And so, there's a lot of draw that come. A lot of people want to come here. Obviously, those who were around when the Grand Prix was downtown, you saw it. You saw that crowd was insane every single year. And it's a shame, I mean, I do love the ovals. I think the oval racing is perhaps better than any street or road course ever will get. But obviously, it's in Lebanon, it's not downtown, and so a little bit different. But in that regard, man, I think like Nashville's just a happening city. Always does support racing really, really well. With the fairgrounds, with everything else, that's been here. But Nashville is just, it's becoming, I think, an iconic sport. I'm a huge hockey guy too, right? So,
Yep.
Okay, you've got football, you got college football, you got pro football, you got everything else going on. But Nashville is just a happening spot. And so I think every major sport wants to be in Nashville in some capacity. And so, we hit a home run with the downtown facility. I know they're building a new stadium. I joke about it, but we need to get that thing done so we can get back downtown because, for us, I mean, that third year, fourth year, whatever it was when they announced that we were going to go down Broadway, man, we were jacked. I mean, you guys had never seen a party like that. And so it would be epic to make that happen in 28, 29, whatever. But for the here and now, look, we're still here. Several of the drivers live in Nashville now or around here. I'm trying to get my wife to move here. If anybody knows any tricks to get a California girl out of California, I'd appreciate it. But it's no, man, it's just a sick place. It'd be awesome it's just great to be here.
Graham, last one for you. I see you're a big Ohio State fan. We talked about it during the break. Thoughts on this game this weekend? Texas, Ohio State in the shoe.
Yeah.
1 versus 2, depending on what poll you're looking at, should be a full one.
I'm not a fan of these 11 a.m. here at noon starts. I've gone to the last few games that were sort of noon starts when those were the ones I could go to and get back home to Columbus where I'm from. It just lacks so much buzz, man. I think for an opposing team, it really does take the crowd out of it in a big way. Not to say it's not full and raucous and everything, but like it's a different place. But dude, I don't know. They have so much skill, Ohio State. Like I know Feinbaum wrote us
Jeremiah
off
Smith.
and whatever, but like it's not just him, man. Like I'm pretty close with Hartline. I've known Hartline for a long time, man, since he played in Miami. Mark Pantoni, the general manager of Ohio State football, very close friend of mine. I mean, very close friend. And, we were talking last night. He and I were texting I get it's a young group. You lost a lot of guys, but your stars, your big players are better than anybody else's big players.
100%.
Jeremiah Smith, he's the best. Caleb Downs, he's the best at his position. I think ultimately we'll see how the quarterback play is on both sides. It's not just Ohio State. I mean, we don't know what Arch is going to do. So I'm just bummed. Look, I'm happy to be racing here in Nashville, but I would really like to be able to watch that game. And unfortunately, we're going to miss it.
Yeah, you guys will be out there Saturday and Sunday, the Borchetta Bourbon Music City Grand Prix. If you want tickets, musiccitygp.com/tickets, or you can call 866-RACE-TICKS. Get out there. Going to be a great weekend full of racing as you guys wrap up the season. Again, really appreciate you guys coming in. Best of luck this weekend.
Thank you very much.
Perfect. Thank you.
Appreciate it. Graham Rahal and Devlin DiFrancesco joining us here ahead of the Borchetta Bourbon Music City Grand Prix coming up this weekend over at Nashville Super Speedway. We'll take a quick break. Be right back after this. Next man up here on 102.5 The Game. Next man up, 102.5 The Game. Jake Lyman, Nick Frazier, Parker Kelly with you. Great to have IndyCar drivers Graham Rahal and Devlin DeFrancesco in with us. Great stuff for them to have them in. We got to talk some Ohio State football and obviously a lot about the Grand Prix going on this weekend out at Nashville Superspeedway. Again, if you haven't gotten tickets yet, make sure you do. Going to be 2 fun days of racing out there at the Speedway.
I learned a lot about the tracks. The fact that they love Nashville's oval track, the small oval track, is impressive.
Yes,
another hotbed for sports.
And they're advocating once that stadium gets built, get it back on the city streets. I'm excited for that too. I wanted to go last year, and then I was like, oh, it's in Lebanon, but it isn't that far, and I feel like the oval, honestly, it probably is a little bit better of a fan experience because you get to see everything going on the whole time. Like on the city streets, yeah, it's cool. You're in a bar or like outside and we're getting to watch, but it's probably just a couple of seconds at a time.
You got to pick your corner.
Right. Yeah. You kind of just have to set up somewhere and take it, which I think it's cool. And obviously the drivers enjoy it, but excited for this weekend out there at the Super Speedway. Saturday and Sunday, the Borchetta Bourbon Music City Grand Prix. Make sure you get your tickets. Again, you can go to musiccitygp.com/tickets. Let's get to college football because, guys, guess what? I mentioned earlier in the show, we're back.
Yes.
The we're back meter is maxed out right now as we have college football for the next 5 nights. Tonight, tomorrow night, all day Saturday, 2 big games Sunday, and then Bill Belichick makes his debut on Monday. And don't worry, Bill, we'll get to you in a second. But tonight, 17 games, including a couple of moderately intriguing games. Like on a Thursday night, you're not going to be getting Texas, Ohio State, like we just talked with Graham Rahal about. But we do have a top 25 Boise State team taking on USF. That's at 4:30. So when you get home, you can flip on college football and it's on the rest of the night.
That is such an early game.
4:30, 5:30 Eastern time.
Yeah.
And it's in Tampa. But Boise State, USF, 4:30 Central time. You can watch that all the way through. If it gets out of hand, NC State, ECU, maybe a little bit of a sleeper game there. See if you can get an upset. That'll be a good game. That's at 6 on the ACC network. And then at 8, Cincinnati, Nebraska in Arrowhead Stadium. Not saying it's the greatest slate ever, but it's college football on a Thursday night.
I'll watch Patrick Mahomes Jr. in Arrowhead. I'm cool
right.
with
Dylan Raiola, get to watch him.
How about that coaching matchup in the first game? We got Spencer Danielson versus Alex Golish.
Right. I mean, I'm happy to have any college football back. And obviously we got Farmageddon on Saturday. That was a good game. Really fun game. Iowa State, Kansas State. But the rest of the games, Stanford, Hawaii ended up being good. There, Kansas blew out Fresno State. Like there was some intrigue there, but these are actual games with some playoff implications. Boise State was in the playoff last year. Maybe a couple sleepers, which brings me to my question here. As we get ready to start off officially the college football season, you got some sleepers playing tonight, playing tomorrow. Who do you think could end up in the college football playoff that we're not talking about right now? And I will put rules on this here. Cannot be ranked currently. So not in the AP top 25. So Boise State doesn't count, and I wouldn't put Boise State in there because they made the playoff last year. So Boise State doesn't count, or it can be a group of 4 team outside of Boise State. So not in the top 25 in the power conference or a group of 4 team outside of Boise State. You got anybody in mind?
I do. And me being a Mississippi State fan, a lot of people kind of know where I might be leaning on this. UNLV for me is that team that is sleeping into the playoff. If they can just dominate their conference, I mean, they have a lot of transfer guys, a lot of graduate students at UNLV. I think Dan Mullen, they had a hiccup week 1.
Almost lost to Idaho State.
It was bad. They had a few fumbles that were returned for a touchdown and stuff like that. But I think defensively, they just got to clean up some things. Offensively, I think they're there.
Yeah.
Just defensively, they just need to clean it up.
I mean, I did pick them when we did our 12 teams last week. I did pick them to make the playoffs. So, I'm not feeling great about that pick right now, but we'll see. It's only week 1 and they're still undefeated. No, they haven't blown it completely yet. Parker Kelly, do you have any sleepers in mind for this season?
I do. I have like 5, but I'll pick one for the sake of the segment. I'm going with Utah. Because
Utah.
we're talking about John Mateer and Ben Arbuckle coming over from Washington State to Oklahoma, but we're not having the same conversation for Utah, yet they did the exact same thing. They bring over Devin Dampier from New Mexico. They bring over the offensive coordinator, Tim Beck. I believe that's going to work wonders for the offense. And then defensively, death taxes and Utah defense, all right? Kyle Whittingham has not had 2 losing seasons in a row, it seems like ever. And I do not think they're going to have a bad year again. Watch out for the Utes.
I don't hate that. They experienced coach, and the Big 12's pretty wide open this year. They are playing UCLA this weekend.
Oh, boy.
Did you see the newest Nico Iamaleava drama?
Wasn't it about like something with Oregon?
Yeah, so he went to Oregon UCLA last year mid-season. So and then I guess the rumors are, and Dan Lanning hasn't confirmed this, but the rumors are that Oregon was the team that Nico initially reached out to.
Oh, no, that was confirmed.
Oh, that was confirmed?
That was confirmed.
Okay,
yeah,
gotcha.
Yeah. He just needs to be more private. Him and his entire family, just stop talking.
I mean, they botched that whole thing, but it is funny that to come out and just say, yeah, during our bye week, I went and watched a team that I really wanted to transfer to.
That's bad.
Crazy. But Utah UCLA this weekend should be a fun game. I'm going to go to the ACC. The ACC has some top-heavy teams. Like Clemson, I think Clemson's going to be good this year. I believe Connor Newt even picked them to win the whole thing. I think Miami will be solid this year. Like Carson Beck is not great, but I think he is being underrated slightly because of how things ended at Georgia. I don't think he's going to win the Heisman or anything, but I think he'll be serviceable for Miami. I'm going to go with Georgia Tech. Haynes King is back. Jalen Haynes is back. I know that that's kind of where the eyes go for Georgia Tech. All right, they got an experienced quarterback, experienced running back, but that does help a lot. And their coach clearly knows what he's doing. We saw last year in that game against Florida State, who ended up not being great, but still a game on a neutral site in Dublin against a talented Florida State team. He was able to get the win. So I'm going with Georgia Tech. They play Coach Prime tomorrow night, Colorado, and I'm taking the Jackets. I think
the Ramblin' Wreck, baby.
Colorado just announced Caden Salter is going to be their starting quarterback,
Yes.
right? The former Liberty Flame. So I don't know. Like, I think he's fine, but it's a downgrade from Shedeur Sanders. You don't have, yeah. Like Caden Salter.
I would say so.
Caden Salter's not an NFL draft pick.
He was at Tennessee before Liberty as well.
Right. Yeah.
Mhm.
Like, I don't think Caden Salter's not an NFL draft pick.
I get that, yeah. But as for a college quarterback, though, I guess I'm just a little high on Caden Salter. That's just me. Never mind.
I don't love Colorado this year. I think they're going to take a step back and, end up being kind of in the middling 5, 6, 7 win range. I think Georgia Tech makes a statement tomorrow, and they don't have to be great to get into the playoff. Like, let's look at Georgia Tech's schedule. I don't believe, do they have to play Clemson at all this year?
That's week 3, and it's at
Oh,
Georgia.
it is
It's at Georgia Tech. So
Right.
Clemson has
Georgia Tech
will have the advantage.
Almost beat Georgia last year, by the way. But outside, so yes, they do play Clemson and they play Georgia. So that's 2 top 5 games. But if you win the rest of your games and those are your only 2 losses, that probably gets you in at 10-2. You look at the other teams they have to play. Duke could be pretty good, and they have to play in Durham. But they play Wake Forest. They play Virginia Tech, who I don't think is going to be all that good. Syracuse, NC State, Boston College, Pitt. Like, there's nobody else that scares you on that schedule. If you're competitive against Clemson, competitive against Georgia, heck, if you win one of those games, I think the Yellow Jackets could sneak in.
Interesting. Yeah, I never really thought about Georgia Tech being a sleeper like that. But, yeah, looking at their schedule, I mean, you just have 2 top 5 matchups. If you can maybe split that, would you say? I know you just went out everything.
Right. I mean, if they lose both those games, it's not going to be a horrible data point for them.
I get that, but say if they were to at least split one
right,
of
you
those.
win one of those games.
Yeah.
I don't know. I like the Ramblin' Wreck a little bit.
Jake Lyman always putting everybody on their toes.
Georgia Tech, they could get it done. There was one other team that I saw that intrigued me. I'm blanking on it right now, though. Nebraska, I don't hate it. I don't think they're going to make the playoff, but I think Nebraska will be better than they have been. I like Matt Rule. I think
You know the rule. The Matt Rule 3. or year 3. Sorry.
Yeah, right. Like at Baylor,
the Matt Rule.
I like Matt Rule. I think he will have them take a step forward. And like Dylan Raiola, as much as he gets, a ton of crap thrown his way for the Patrick Mahomes impersonation, because it is stupid. It's a stupid shtick that he does, trying to look exactly like Patrick Mahomes, but he's still a talented quarterback. And Nebraska is not super talented anymore, but they're still a brand in college football.
They're competitive.
Even if it's not the same brand that they used to be. Keep an eye on Nebraska. I'm not going to pick them as a sleeper playoff team, but I think they're a team that's going to be closer to the playoff, maybe like a top 20 team at the end of the year.
Interesting. Yeah. To me, Nebraska, I think, is still on the outside looking in. They have probably about 4 losses on their schedule, probably. If you just kind of look at the grand scheme of it all, they're a little bit of ways away. I think Matt Rule has probably 1 or 2 more recruiting classes.
Right.
Then he's back to where he needs to be.
I don't think they're quite there yet, but I wouldn't be surprised if they win tonight by a decent margin. Cincinnati's fine, but they're not the Cincinnati under Luke Fickell. Scott Satterfield's their head coach now, the former Louisville head coach. Like, I think Cincinnati will get back to being decent, but I think Nebraska could end up getting it done tonight in a big way. So we'll see. That game's at 8:00 on ESPN, following Boise State and USF. 615-737-1025 is our phone number. If you want to chime in, we'd love to hear from you. 615-737-1025. Our phone line's driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Jake Lyman, Nick Frazier, Parker Kelly with you on this Thursday. Next Man Up, 1025 The Game. Next man up, 1025, The Game. Jake Lyman, Nick Frazier, Parker Kelly with you. Final 30 minutes of the show on this Thursday. Chase and Big Joe will be coming up live from the Mint Gaming Hall, Circus Sportsbook up there in Kentucky at noon. Appreciate Dr. Crane pulling double duty with us today.
It's been fun.
Yeah.
Enjoy hanging out with you, Jake.
Have Nick Frazier on for the first 3 hours. He'll be with Chase and Big Joe from noon to 3. Tomorrow, Connor Newt going to join us. He's gotten a Friday off school, so he'll get to come join us and
the rifleman
and talk the first full weekend of college football. Big games coming up on Saturday. You've got Texas, Ohio State at 11. You've got Alabama, Florida State at 2:30. LSU, Clemson in the nightcap. Virginia Tech, South Carolina, and Miami, Notre Dame Sunday. And then on Monday, Bill Belichick's debut against TCU with the North Carolina Tar Heels. And Belichick made the news again yesterday from Bleacher Report. Bill Belichick and Jordan Hudson, his girlfriend, who is about 50 years his younger, they trademarked a couple of terms. Chapel Bill, that's a good one. I like that one. The Bellustrator, the Trail of Salty Tears. Not 100% understanding why on that one. No Days Off. That one, I'm surprised that they could get that one. And the Belichick Way. But the one that made the most headlines, Gold Digger. They have trademarked the term Gold Digger. And I guess they're just being upfront with it and saying, yeah, this is what's going on here. We're going to trademark it. My question is, how many times does she get shown on the broadcast on Monday night?
I thought originally she was like not allowed to attend games, right? Or be on the sideline is what it is. Is that the whole situation?
I don't know. Well, there was the report that like UNC banned her from the facility, and then it came out that that was false, that she was welcome to come whenever she wanted to.
Because she was taken off the email list or something. I remember that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I think there's something going on there. Like you get to see the CBS interview that they did with her interrupting. Like, it's not all smoke and mirrors. Like there's actually something going on there with her kind of controlling what's going on.
Yeah.
But it is funny just to see them straight up just come out and say it, basically, that we're trademarking Gold Digger and we're saying, yeah, this is basically what's going on. Jordan Hudson, she's going to be a very rich lady when Bill Belichick passes away.
I'd say maybe 6 or 7 times would be the number she'd be shown on television come Monday.
Yeah. I mean, it's going to be like Taylor Swift with the Chiefs games of like, hey, Jordan Hudson, there she is. Look at Bill Belichick with a 24-year-old. It's going to happen over and over and over again. So, get prepared for it. I am excited, though, to watch UNC because I don't really know if Bill Belichick and his philosophy, the way he coaches, is going to translate to the college level, especially in this era of college football.
Yeah, I think it brings everything back to the basics. When it comes to Bill being in North Carolina, it's more of developing those young players. Everybody's like, Deion can't make the transition to the NFL because everybody's getting paid the same as him. As for Bill, I think for him, it'd be an easier transition to go to college because he's already been there. Not college in general, but he's already been to the highest of highs with the Super Bowls and with Tom Brady. He can translate that to the college game easy, in my opinion. And looking at their schedule during the break I was talking to you about, honestly, they only got one top 25 matchup. Yeah. That's against Clemson. So the rest of their lineup, their schedule, it kind of favors them if they come out hot against TCU.
Yeah, it's just, I just don't know if he's going to be able to get through to some of these kids. Like, there's a difference between coaching professionals who are getting paid, and these guys are in their late 20s and early 30s, and some into their late 30s, and coaching 18 to 21-year-olds. I do think Bill Belichick, you've seen him soften up a little bit over the last couple of years, so that probably helps. I also wonder about recruiting. Like, yeah, there is an allure, I'm sure, to playing for Bill Belichick. But is it the same allure as playing for Deion Sanders? Like, I think Deion is more of the cool and relatable guy, as where Bill Belichick is like standards and results. Yeah, it's cool. This guy has 6 Super Bowl championships, but does he relate to these high schoolers and get them to come and play for his program as much as some of these other transition guys who come from the NFL.
Yeah, it's like a player's coach versus a professional, I guess, vibe is the way Belichick kind of comes off as. I get what you're saying about that. I think he can. I think he can relate to these guys. I mean, throw Dion out of the equation. Bill, I don't know. There's something about Bill and the recruiting aspect. I think he's delegating a lot of things to other people. I think he is solely working on coaching players and making them better. And then he's delegating a lot of the recruiting stuff to other people. That's what I perceive.
Yeah, I could see that, of bringing in guys that he trusts who can be the recruiters, and he's kind of the CEO of the program. Like, I guess that could work. I just don't get North Carolina back-to-back times just bringing in guys who they have an expiration date. Like Mac Brown, was it cool to bring him back? Sure. And it got them some success. Like, he recruited Sam Howell. He brought in Drake May. And they were a pretty good team for a couple of years there. But you knew it had an expiration date. Same thing with Bill Belichick. I think Bill wants to get back to the NFL at some point. Does it ever happen? That remains to be seen. But I do think that he wants to go back to break the all-time wins record.
Fun fact, my great aunt dated Mac Brown when he was the head coach at Tennessee Tech.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
I could have been a North Carolina Tar Heel.
You could have been. Wow. If Mac Brown had just, made the call.
And I think it was my great aunt's fault too. I think she was the one that broke up with him.
Wow, man. Missed opportunity.
She wasn't thinking about her future family.
Parker Kelly could have been wearing the Carolina blue.
They could have trademarked that gold digger mentality. I don't
Right.
know. Yeah. Your great aunt could have been ahead of the schedule here.
Exactly.
Nevada Josh saying she's trademarking gold digger to put it on jewelry and keychains. Crazy. Like, I'm having trouble understanding why you would want to just go around and advertise that. And why is Bill Belichick okay with that too?
Maybe sometimes embracing something like this can cover up whatever.
Right. It's like kind of laughing at yourself a little bit. Like if you are in on the joke, then you're not being laughed at anymore. I don't know. It's strange. And I wonder if Bill's going to be there more than I would set the over under like 2.5 years. Like, I would guess within 3 years, he either gets the opportunity to go back to the NFL and does, or he just retires.
Yeah, I know in his North Carolina contract, his son will take over if he were to leave, right? Or resign. His son, Steve.
Yes. Oh, right. Yeah, they did write that into the contract. Yeah.
So then you kind of look at it as like,
I think that's what he wants to do, is he's just there to make sure that the transition of power goes well. But is Steve Belichick ready to be the head coach of a power conference football team?
Probably not.
Probably not. I mean, I get it with some of these ACC schools. It's like you kind of have to throw stuff at the wall and hope something sticks because you're running out of time. The SEC and the Big Ten are pulling away. You really have no way as the ACC to catch up with them because the TV money's just not even in the same stratosphere. So I guess bringing in Bill Belichick can get more eyes on your program, and maybe that makes you more attractive to the SEC or the Big Ten when they eventually expand and become their super league or whatever they're going to do. But I don't see the long-term play here in terms of coaching for this team.
Let me put this out in the ether, Jake. Say, Arch Manning does go to the draft next year. Say the Browns are the number 1 overall pick. Say Kevin Stefanski loses his job. Let's say maybe Bill Belichick. Yes, if he leaves UNC, lets his son take over, he takes the Cleveland job. Arch Manning and Bill Belichick. How crazy would that be?
That would be crazy. I mean,
is it too far-fetched?
It's probably a little bit of a stretch, but weirder things have happened. Like, I don't rule anything out. If you had told any of us 10 years ago that Bill Belichick is ever going to be the head coach of the North Carolina Tar Heels, I think we would have all called you crazy. And here we are. We are 4 days away from Bill Belichick taking the sidelines in Carolina blue for the first time. So, crazier things have happened, but, I don't think I would count on it. 9013 on our text line says, I don't think these younger players will be motivated by Bill outside of a player or two. Depends on who the team leaders are and how they respond. Yeah, that's what I'm thinking too, is like, yeah, you're going to find a couple of guys who will buy in and they will get into the Patriot way and the Belichick way. But are you going to be able to convince 100 18 to 22-year-olds to buy in to the do your job, all that kind of stuff. I don't know. And it's going to be tough for them to actually build a program because there are less and less players like that want to buy into the Patriot way.
Yeah, and it's difficult too for Bill when he now is making the transition to college, because when Saban made the transition from NFL to college, there wasn't this whole NIL factor. I think with Bill now, you have this NIL factor involved. Now you have general managers added to every university.
Right.
This is like professional sports. So for him, the learning curve doesn't change as much from like pro style to college. And I think he would need that like lack of NIL. Like if they didn't have it, I think he'd made an easier transition like Saban did. But if he gets that buy-in, and the buy-in is what is really holding them back, if you can get the buy-in from these young players to say, hey, I want to be at the NFL level, then that's what you need.
Yeah.
And if you get those players, then you're going to have a successful team.
It's a good point. And I think, could it work out where he's successful there? Sure. I wouldn't be counting on it. And you're right. Like Saban, when he transitioned, it wasn't this new era of college football. And most coaches are trying to get out of this era of college football. It's a little concerning, or maybe it just shows you how desperate Belichick was to get back into coaching, that he had to go to the college route, because the NFL, I don't think, wants him anymore.
Yeah, I saw a video the other day about Sean McVay reacting to the Patriots, I think, first round pick of Colton Strange, and now he's cut.
Yeah.
And I just
the Rams saying we wanted to take him in the third round.
Yeah.
Crazy.
And that was Bill's last draft.
Yeah.
Thinking, maybe there was something going on there.
Yeah. And Mike Vrabel has spent the last, not that Belichick was a part of last year's draft, but Vrabel has basically just tried to erase any semblance of the previous regime for the Patriots since he's been there. Nevada Josh also saying, all Belichick did was preach about no distractions for 30 years. Now he's being a hypocrite and wants nothing but distractions for more attention to himself in North Carolina. It's like Deion Sanders with Colorado, but at least Sanders has always been a distraction-loving attention and hasn't changed, unlike Bill. Yeah, it's like Deion Sanders, he loves the drama and the extracurriculars of it. So that's why it makes sense. Bill, you're right. It's always been like, we're on to Cincinnati, and like, we're going to focus on the job at hand only. Now he's trademarking gold digger for jewelry. How the times have changed. 615-737-1025 is our phone number. Last call for phones on this Thursday. We'll wrap up the show after this here on Next Man Up 1025 The Game. Final segment of the show on this Thursday. Jake Lyman, Nick Frazier, Parker Kelly, next man up, 102.5 The Game. Appreciate everybody hanging out with us today. It was great to have Graham Rahal and Devlin DiFrancesco on with us from the NTT IndyCar Series. They'll be competing out at the Borchetta Bourbon Music City Grand Prix over the weekend out at Nashville Superspeedway. So make sure you get your tickets there. Excited for that this weekend. Also, was great talking some Titans. Mike Borgonzi spoke. I believe they're wrapping practice up in the next 15 minutes or so. So Chase and Big Joe coming up next. They will have all of your reaction to that. Let's go back to our phones quickly before we wrap up here. Adam in Portland is waiting, wanted to get in on this Bill Belichick conversation. Adam, thanks for calling. What are your thoughts on Bill Belichick and Jordan Hudson as he gets ready for his debut?
Well, I'm just ready for it to be football time with him because I think everybody they like to forget that, like, oh, he's a big joke now. He's got this and that going on. Dude, if you were in your mid-70s and you were doing what he's doing, you could call that a pretty perfect life. Like he's done everything he wants to do already. I always think back to Lou Holtz because he was amazing at Notre Dame, and then late in his career, people forget that he would coach South Carolina, but he was really good there. And South Carolina they were awful, but he could coach, man. And so I know Belichick can coach, so I'm just interested to see what he looks like. I say hot take. I think he's going to be really good this year. I know Chase doesn't like it, but he doesn't pay my bills. I think it's a hot take. I think he's going to be really good this year, man. Like he's still Bill Belichick. Like I think it's going to look different, obviously, but at the same time, man, I think he's got a lot to prove, and I think he's going to come out and prove it.
Yeah, thanks for the call, Adam. I'm skeptical on whether Bill Belichick can succeed at the college level. Like, again, it's possible, but I just think it seems like a desperate move to go to UNC. But Adam, I agree. I'm ready to see him on the football field. Like, it has been such a long offseason of all this stuff and the distractions with his girlfriend. Like, let's go see him actually coach a football game and see if he can still do it.
Yeah, I don't want to be the guy playing the fence here. I see Adam's point, and I lean more that way. But I also see what you're saying.
Yeah.
I just have to see it on the field. But I think Bill, it's like I'd say an athlete when they're running on a track. They have first gear, second gear, and third gear. I think Bill can take it to a whole nother gear. I really do. Once the whistle blows, the kickoff starts, everything, I think we're going to see Bill Belichick. Me being optimistic, I don't know.
I think he's still trying to prove that the Patriots' success was just as much him as Brady. And I know that since Brady went and won without him, everybody gives more credit to Brady, which they should. But Bill Belichick still was a really, really good football coach. But it didn't help him out that when Brady left, he made a bunch of horrible decisions in a row. The most glaring one was letting Matt Patricia and Joe Judge run his offense for a young quarterback. Just
almost like desperation throws.
It made absolutely no sense. And I think he's trying to go prove like, hey, I'm a really good coach. I can go do it even at the college level. And it just feels like he's past his prime. Like if he had just, and he couldn't have done it, if he just retired when Brady left, I think the legacy of Bill Belichick would be remembered in a completely different way. Like you would remember Bill Belichick as, man, he was always one of the best coaches in the league, maybe the best coach of all time with 6 Super Bowls. And, was it him or Brady? We'll never know. But because he stuck around and kind of ruined Mac Jones with that decision to not give him a real offensive coordinator. And, Mac Jones, do I think he was ever going to be a superstar? Probably not. But I do think Bill Belichick played a role in his demise as a starting NFL quarterback. And I think if he had just retired and as 9013 says, if he had just ridden off to the sunset, I think people would remember him as the Super Bowl champion. Now you're kind of remembering him as this circus sideshow that's going on with his girlfriend.
Yeah, and I think it would have been a lot better for his legacy. One, because you have all those great things to say, but then that one question of what if? What if he stayed coaching? He could have the all-time winning record over Don Shula. What if?
Right.
That's the only negative thing you probably say about Bill at that point.
Yep.
Now, like you're saying, all this is unfolding. Man, it's crazy.
I think it's an ego thing of like when Brady left, he wanted to prove that it was him. And Brady obviously went and proved that he was a larger factor in their success, which I think everybody kind of knew. Like Tom Brady, he was the best quarterback of all time. He is the best quarterback of all time. And Bill Belichick helped out a ton with his roster building and his coaching, but you can tell that a good quarterback means more than a good coach. Nevada Josh asked, when y'all become senior citizens, would you date a model in her 20s if you could? I mean, I don't fault Bill Belichick. I think he's given her too much say and a hand in too much of his affairs. Like, he can date her. Why is she so involved with what's going on at North Carolina?
I don't know. And to Nevada Josh's question there, if I got $1 million, probably so, but I don't think I'll be having no $1 million when it come around that time.
Right. Like, I don't think Bill Belichick just met Jordan Hudson in a bar and picked her up. Like, I'm sure that there was some sort of financial attraction.
Yeah. If there's a 20-year-old attracted to me when I'm 68, there's a problem. Or I'm just really good looking. One of the two. I mean,
or there is a lot of money in your bank account, as you said. John says the NFL doesn't want him to pass on. Maybe that's true. I don't know if that's the motivation, though. I think a lot of NFL teams are realizing that the head coaches that succeed haven't been the retreads. Like, and Bill Belichick, as good as he's been, I think NFL teams know it's like, all right, if we bring him in, is he going to be a Super Bowl champion again? Probably not. And we're going to have to look for a new head coach in 3 to 5 years when he retires. So it just didn't make a ton of sense for him to stay on.
Yeah.
We'll see what he looks like on Monday night against TCU. Bill Belichick making his debut with North Carolina. Going to be a great weekend of college football. Starting tonight, we got 17 games, including a top 25 team in Boise State playing USF at 4:30. That'll do it for us today. Tomorrow, Connor Newt going to join me. We'll preview the whole college football weekend and talk some more Titans as they get ready for game week next week against the Denver Broncos. For Nick Frazier, Parker Kelly, I am Jake Lyman signing off. Chasing Big Joe coming up next here on 102.5 The Game.